She comes to my concert. Author, Jiao Yao. Copywriting. In high school, Ling Chen was the most taciturn student in the class, always walking alone with lowered eyebrows and eyes. The longest sentence Zhu Wenju ever said to him was just the polite sentence at graduation, "I wish you a bright future, and I will keep in touch in the future." Later, Ling Chen really had a bright future. He was dubbed a monster rookie when he debuted, swept the major music charts, won various music awards, and was followed by flowers and applause. It is rumored that Ling Chen's famous work Classmate Xiaokan was written for his first love, which is unforgettable. Friends knew that Zhu Wenju and Ling Chen were classmates in high school, so they came to gossip. Do you know who his first love was? Zhu Wenju shook his head. I don't know, maybe it's not from our school. One day, the class that had been silent for a long time suddenly became active, discussing the hacking of the famous star classmate Ling Chen. The old classmate asked Zhu Wenju to complain in private. Thank you for hacking the account, I just found out that my note in Ling Chen QQ is the 5th row and the 6th. How about you? Zhu Wenju laughed out loud, couldn't help but open QQ that hadn't been used for a long time, and sure enough, he also received the same message. Ling Chen, Xiaokan's classmate, Xiaoqi job, earns 500 yuan in Kingsongberry days. Come quickly and away letter, JZB1551 number what? I am the amateur Bai Yueg Wang of a big star? Number * reunion after a long absence, secret love comes true * star vs amateur, no prototype * daily update, 6 o'clock every night. The name of the article comes from Jackie Chung's She Comes to My Concert content tags, the proud son of heaven industry elite suite articles search keywords, protagonist, Zhu Wenju, Ling Chen supporting role, others, one sentence introduction, hey? I am the amateur Bai Yueg Wang of a big star? Conception, no matter how beautiful they are not as expensive as you comment on the work. When he was young, Ling Chen had a crush on Zhu Wenju, the most dazzling girl in the school, but because of the inferiority complex formed by his growing environment, he dared not express it, and silently watched Zhu Wenju and the proud son of heaven get together. Many years later, Ling Chen became popular because of his original song Little Silkworm Classmate, and became a much anticipated star, while Zhu Wenju became an unknown elementary school teacher. By chance, Zhu Wenju mistakenly believed that a certain student in the class was Ling Chen's son, so the two met again and reconnected. The writing of this article is fluent, the rhythm is tight, and the style is humorous. It uses a relaxed style of writing to reveal the sensitive and bitter secret love story of a young man with low self-esteem. The characters in the novel have distinct personalities, including the sour past and the sweet romance of the present. In the running in of their respective personality collisions and identity differences, the protagonists find the courage to face the past and the confidence to move toward the future together, and gradually grow into better selves. A gust of autumn wind and drizzle swept away a few dead leaves on the branches, and also blew away the last residual heat of summer. The children had fun chasing and fighting in classrooms and corridors. There is a long corridor between the office and the teaching building, which can't cover the noisy noise. Zhu Wenju finally finished grading yesterday's homework, put down the red pen, picked up a colored lead, and prepared to trace the tabloid template. As soon as the pen was written, a little girl rushed into the office and cried, "Teacher! Zhang Haihao pulled my hair." Zhu Wenju sighed, reached out and touched the back of the little girl's head, and looked back, and saw a chubby little boy hiding at the door of the office and looking inside. Seeing Zhu Wenju approaching, he turned around and wanted to run. "Zhang Haihao, come in," she said in a low voice. Zhang Haihao had no choice but to walk in shyly with his little hands behind his back. Before Zhu Wenju could speak, with just one look, he was so frightened that he took the initiative to ask, "Teacher, I'm useless. You tried too hard." The little girl said while wiping her tears, "You broke my mother's braid." I was just joking." "Woo woo woo. Haihao." Zhu Wenju waved his hand, motioning him to come closer. You hurt your classmates, and you can't make jokes that others don't like, understand? Zhang Haihao put his hands behind his back, drooped his head and said, got it. What should I do now? Zhang Haihao pouted, turned around and said, I'm sorry. No, it's okay. Zhu Wenchu, then shake hands, and we will be united and friendly in the future. Seeing the two fleshy short hands holding each other, Zhu Wenchu managed to pull out a smile. Hurry up and go back to the classroom, it's raining outside, don't go out and get wet in the rain. After the two children left, Zhu Wenchu straightened his hair and continued to lean over to draw tabloids. 2 minutes later. Teacher! Teacher! Ling Xiyuan and Wang Xiaopeng are fighting. There was a click. The colored pencil in Zhu Wenchu's hand was crushed by her. Who would have thought that this was already the fifth student who came to complain in just 25 minutes of exercise time between classes? It's not about grabbing things, it's about arguing. After the quarrel, there are still 2 fights. During the 10 days of acting as the head teacher, Zhu Wenchu felt that his life had been shortened by 10 years. If there is no accident, she will have to substitute for 3 months. Converted according to the ratio, she may not survive tomorrow. How did they fight? Zhu Wenchu turned around and asked. The little boy who came to tip off the news shook his head, I don't know, they started fighting after just playing around. Ling Xiyuan is so fierce. At this moment, Zhu Wenchu finally understood why the former head teacher left a whole box of Mrs. Jing's an oral liquid on the day she packed up her things and went on maternity leave. She breathed a sigh of relief, got up and walked towards the classroom. Through the corridors of chasing and fighting, and up the dangerous stairs. Before reaching the door of the classroom, she had already heard a loud noise. What is this for? She muttered, and hastened her pace. The moment she pushed away from the back of the classroom, she saw black heads piled up in a mess, and the shouts and cries almost knocked the roof over. Quiet! Zhu Wenchu shouted, everyone be quiet. When the children around heard the sound, they turned their heads in unison, and ran around in fright. When the crowd dispersed, Zhu Wenchu saw the perpetrator in the innermost part. The fierce Ling Xiyuan in the legend being written on the ground by another child, unable to move. Stop! Zhu Wenchu rushed in 2 or 3 steps, and after a closer look, Ling Xiyuan's face was covered with blood. Wang Xiaopeng! Stop it! When the little boy who was called out heard the voice, he was so frightened that he rolled off Ling Xiyuan's body. It's nothing serious, it's just that the nose was hit, just stop the bleeding. The school doctor was used to this kind of fighting, so he threw Zhu Wenchu a disinfectant wipe with no expression, and motioned her to wipe the blood off her hands. After getting these words, Zhu Wenchu's beating heart slowed down a little. Fortunately, nothing major happened. Ling Xiyuan only had a nosebleed, and he stretched out his hand to touch it twice before wiping it all over his face. But Zhu Wenchu was not in the mood to wipe her palms. She frowned, stared at the little boy in front of her, and asked, why did you hit someone? Ling Xiyuan's nose was stuffed with gauze, and his appearance looked funny. Coupled with his stubborn expression, he looks more like a cartoon character. Not talking. Zhu Wenchu said solemnly, it doesn't matter if you do something wrong, the important thing is to have a correct attitude. Tell the teacher, why did you fight? Seeing that he refused to speak, Zhu Wenchu had no choice but to be soft. She squatted in front of Ling Xiyuan, touched his sweat-wet hair, and said softly, tell the teacher, okay? We said we would be good friends. Zhu Wenchu's voice was like fine bean paste flowing out of glutinous rice balls, so gentle and sweet that the school doctor beside him felt his heart melt. But this 7-year-old boy was still indifferent, turned his head and said nothing. If you do this again, Zhu Wenchu said, the teacher can only talk to your parents. Parents are worthy of being the killer. No matter how stubborn the child heard it, he immediately panicked. His dark pupils gurgled, rolling like a black grape. I. Wang Xiaopeng scolded me first. Zhu Wenchu asked, what did he scold you for? Ling Xiyuan opened his mouth, and he was about to say something, but he didn't know what he thought of. Puckering his lips, twisting his head, he turned into a gourd with a sawed mouth. No matter what, we can't solve the problem with our fists. Under this gentle voice, no one knew that Zhu Wenchu's patience was exhausted. If you don't tell me, the teacher will really invite the parents. Ling Xiyuan's cheeks flushed suddenly, and his fingers fiddled with the hem of his clothes uneasily. After a while, he stammered and said, My father is very busy. He is not free. How busy can it be? Zhu Wenchu asked, no matter how busy you are, you still have time to come to school. My dad is a doctor. He saves patients every day. Doctors also have off-duty time. Zhu Wenchu took it easy, teacher can go to the hospital to find your father. Children are children, and when they tell lies, they cannot stand being frightened. Seeing that he was about to be exposed, he was so anxious that baby fat was shaking. He lowered his head and thought for a while, then suddenly said again. No, my dad changed careers. He's not in the hospital anymore. Oh. He has become a big star. Ling Xiyuan rolled his eyes and recalled, he always goes out in a super cool car to pick him up. More than 100 reporters are blocking him downstairs. Hundreds of fans take pictures of him every day, sell money. Teacher, if you don't buy a ticket, you won't be able to see him. Why don't you say that your father is an astronaut and is not on Earth right now? Zhu Wenchu resisted the urge to laugh, took out his mobile phone, and said, Yuan, everyone makes mistakes, as long as you correct them, you are still a good boy, but it is wrong for you to lie. Open the Ding Talk parent group, and Zhu Wenchu finds Ling Xiyuan's father. When Xiyuan saw it, he jumped out of the bed in a hurry, but he didn't dare to do anything, he could only hold onto the corner of Zhu Wenchu's clothes pitifully with tears in his eyes. Teacher, don't tell my dad, he will scold me. Zhu Wenchu sighed, pressed the phone, and asked Ling Xiyuan again. Then do you want to tell the teacher why you fought? Ling Xiyuan couldn't hold it any longer, and he hesitated and said in a crying voice, Wang Xiaopeng said, that my mother doesn't want me anymore, my father won't want me anymore. Before taking over the class, Zhu Wenchu had a general understanding of the student's situation. Ling Xiyuan is quite special. According to the former head teacher, he is a single-parent family, and the conditions are very good, but his father is very busy, and he is usually a nanny and tutor. Not to mention picking up and dropping off children and tutoring homework, I didn't even attend a parent-teacher meeting. I enrolled in September last year, and it was also sent by the nanny. This is too outrageous. Hearing what Ling Xiyuan said, Zhu Wenchu was angry and distressed. Okay, the teacher knows, the teacher will call Wang Xiaopeng to criticize him later. But you have to remember that whatever happens, you should not use your fists to solve it, okay? After dealing with this matter, the sun outside the window has already set. After a while, the school bell rang. Zhu Wenchu raised his head and rubbed his neck, and let out a long breath. No wonder the first time she saw the former head teacher, she thought she was 38 years old, and wondered why she became an advanced mother. As a result, he was only 28 years old. This is the blessing of the head teacher. After writing a work summary in the office for a while, Zhu Wenchu was a little worried about the hygiene after work, so he got up and walked towards the classroom. At this point in time, the children in the school had all gone home one after another. The graffiti-filled school is as quiet as a cartoon oil painting. Zhu Wenchu rubbed his temples, planning to take a glance and leave. As a result, I stood in the corridor and looked in. The sky was dark, the autumn wind was blowing, and the faint light shone on a little boy, looking very lonely and pitiful. Ling Xiyuan. Zhu Wenchu was taken aback. His first reaction was to reflect on whether he said something that hurt the child today. Why haven't you come home yet? Ling Xiyuan in the corner lay on the table and said sullenly, "No one came to pick me up." Zhu Wenju immediately raised his hand to look at his watch. "It's 5:30, where are your parents?" "I do not know. Don't you have a nanny? She didn't come." Ling Xiyuan rubbed his eyes, his voice was very hoarse, "I don't know." Zhu Wenju didn't know what to say to the child's family. "Don't stay in the classroom alone, come to the office and do your homework for a while, the teacher will wait with you." Ling Xiyuan nodded, put on his school bag and followed Zhu Wenju. On the way back to the office, Zhu Wenju called Ling Xiyuan's nanny and father respectively. The ridiculous thing is that none of them can get through. She arranged Ling Xiyuan to do homework on the teacher's desk next door, and when she sat down, she looked down at the little boy carefully. On the fair and delicate face, the thick eyelashes hang down, there is actually a shadow, as cute as a girl. Alas, the parents also had the heart. Another half an hour passed in a blink of an eye. Zhu Wenju has tried to contact Ling Xiyuan's parents 6 or 7 times, but none of them succeeded. At this point, even the teachers who worked overtime were gone, and the children were still waiting pitifully for someone to pick them up. Seeing that the battery of the mobile phone was almost dead, Zhu Wenju lost his temper completely, and was even more anxious than Ling Xiyuan. If she hadn't gone to the classroom to take a look at it temporarily today, would it be possible to really let the child wait alone? What if he ran out alone? Seeing that it was getting dark, the child hadn't had dinner yet, and it was raining outside, so it was chilly, so staying in the office was not an option. Zhu Wenju took Ling Xiyuan's hand and sighed softly. "Is it cold? The teacher will take you home first." It is always insecure for a child to go out alone, so he nodded and started packing his school bag. Ling Xiyuan's home is not far from the school, only a few kilometers away, but the traffic was unexpectedly congested today, and it took almost half an hour for a taxi to arrive. On the way to send him upstairs, Zhu Wenju looked at the environment of this high-end community, and the more he thought about it, the more outrageous he felt. He was so relieved to leave the child alone at school. How can you be a father if you are so irresponsible? But then I thought again. It's really not easy for a single father to make money to support his family. He probably thinks that everything will be fine if he leaves it to the nanny. But no matter how busy you are, you should balance work and family. She thought about it for a long time, and felt that she needed to find an opportunity to have a good chat with this single father. While hesitating, Zhu Wenju suddenly received a call from the nanny. "Congratulations, teacher!" The nanny said eagerly, "Is Ling Xiyuan still in school?" Zhu Wenju. "When did you call? I have already delivered it to my door." "Oops! That's great! Scared the out of me." The nanny raised her voice and said, "It's all my fault. There was an accident on the road just now, and I have dealt with it now. I am really sorry for your trouble. The child's father happened to be at home today. I am relieved that you hand him over to him." "The child's father is actually at home?" Zhu Wenju blinked. "I just wanted to find an opportunity to chat with him, but I didn't expect the opportunity to come so quickly." "Okay, I see." Hanging up the phone, Zhu Wenju patted Ling Xiyuan's head. "Auntie said your father is at home today, teacher, please talk to him. By the way, is there anything you want teacher to tell you?" These words fell into Ling Xiyuan's ears, but the meaning was different. His whole body was shocked. Talk to Dad, isn't this a complaint? In case he found out that he was fighting at school today. It happened that the elevator stopped at the 28th floor. Seeing the door open, Xiyuan shuddered. He immediately trotted 2 steps and stopped in front of Zhu Wenju, bowing fiercely. "I don't have anything to say. Thank you teacher for sending me home. Goodbye teacher." Zhu Wenju was not in the mood to pierce Ling Xiyuan's petty thoughts for the time being. She just scribbled, "The teacher is not here to criticize you," and then reached out to ring the doorbell. There were 2 ding-dong, which were very clear in the empty entrance corridor. "Teacher, don't. At this time, a male voice came from the loudspeaker of the video doorbell. Who? Both Zhu Wenchu and Ling Xiyuan were taken aback for a moment. It was just a single word, but Zhu Wenchu felt his eardrums being scratched gently. Even the weak current sound in the loudspeaker can hardly hide the clearness of its voice. Zhu Wenchu took a quick look at Ling Xiyuan. She didn't expect that this single father's voice was so nice. Sounds so young. I am Ling Xiyuan's teacher. After speaking, Zhu Wenchu thought for a while, and added, I was transferred to teach Ling Xiyuan this semester. There was no response from the door. This is a video doorbell, and people inside can definitely see the scene outside. She pursed her lips, not knowing what to say, so she lowered her head and asked Ling Xiyuan, why doesn't your father open the door? What? Ling Xiyuan blinked quickly, but couldn't hide the panic on his face. He hesitated for a long time, and when he was about to say something, the door finally opened. A gust of air conditioning gushed out, rushing towards Zhu Wenchu's face. She frowned subconsciously, thinking how could she turn the air conditioner down so low because there were children at home. When I looked up, the opening words I had planned were stuck in my throat. The interior is dim, with little or no lighting. There is only a small lamp hanging in the air at the entrance, which can illuminate a corner of the corridor. A thin man stood under the lamp. He seemed to have just woken up, his white t-shirt was a little wrinkled, and his hair was a little messy. Shrouded in gentle warm light, the clear and sharp outline is covered with a faint halo, adding a bit of softness. His eyes were reflected in an almost transparent amber color, and when he looked directly at him, Zhu Wenchu's breathing suddenly tightened. Ling Chen? Zhu Wenchu stared at him blankly, not sure if he was delusional. But this face? There is no other face in the world that can be seen in the streets and alleys. The images and memories in front of me collided rapidly. Many thoughts flashed uncontrollably one by one. In fact, since graduating from high school, Zhu Wenchu's memory of this classmate who had little contact with her has faded rapidly. After going to college, she almost forgot about this person. Until 5 years ago, singer Ling Chen was born. He quickly became popular like a rocket, and his original songs swept the major charts. Every year, he will definitely have a seat at the heavyweight award ceremony, and his advertising endorsements are almost everywhere in sight. Zhu Wenchu doesn't follow stars, and doesn't care too much about the entertainment industry, but he can be seen everywhere and heard about him. As Ling Chen's image on the screen changed day by day, Zhu Wenchu witnessed from a distance that his outline became clearer and clearer. Become sharp and confident in the light. Zhu Wenchu also gradually accepted that Ling Chen was the big star Ling Chen, not the classmate who always sat in the last row of the classroom. But they never expected that they would meet again unexpectedly on such an ordinary day. Zhu Wenchu just stood there stupidly, unable to recover for a long time. Until a crisp voice interrupted her thoughts. Dad! Zhu Wenchu! Who are you calling? She suddenly lowered her head to look at Ling Xiyuan, and then looked up at Ling Chen. After going back and forth twice, her pupils constricted. Dad? With the light behind him, Zhu Wenchu couldn't quite see Ling Chen's expression clearly, only heard him say, "You are calling." Before he could finish speaking, the little thing suddenly jumped up in front of him and hugged his thigh tightly. Dad! I miss you so much. Zhu Wenchu's pupils almost burst. She glanced at Ling Xiyuan again, and then at Ling Chen. Take another look at Ling Xiyuan. Then, speak in disbelief. You, the child is already this old. Ling Chen was originally trying to push away Ling Xiyuan who was clinging to him. Hearing what Zhu Wenchu said, he stopped, his eyes flicked slightly, and he looked up. The tails of his eyes were lightly raised, his brows were half raised, and his tone was not friendly, "Don't talk nonsense." Like a thunderbolt straight down. After a while, Zhu Wenchu turned his face away without saying a word. Don't worry. I won't talk nonsense. Ling Chen twitched the corner of his mouth. Zhu Wenchu looked at him again, not knowing what expression to show. Dad is very busy. Never show up at school. He has become a big star. The surname Ling is indeed rare. Everything seemed to make sense. Wait. She suddenly looked down at Ling Siyuan again. Calculated by age. Fuck? Zhu Wenxue gasped. In her impression, Ling Chen in high school was a very withdrawn person. He is always alone, has no friends, does not like to talk, and always sits in the last row. Moreover, he has a bad temper, either keeping silent or perfunctory. The boys don't like him even more. Zhu Wenxue occasionally heard someone say that he is poor, and he doesn't know what to pull. Later, he came to school with injuries from time to time. No one knew the reason, and there were no explanations from him when rumors spread. All curiosity will eventually calm down, and the students gradually get used to his solitary life, and no one has the willpower to pry open this cold lock. What's more, Zhu Wenxue, who always sat in the first row because he didn't want to wear glasses, was far away from Ling Chen. The two have been classmates for 3 years, and they can count on 10 fingers the words they have said, which probably included a few words of excuse me and thank you. To her, the existence of Ling Chen in high school was just a name that regularly appeared in the class list, and there was no sense of existence other than that. So she always felt that Ling Chen was just an ordinary high school student with better looks but less temper. Now it seems that she is still sloppy. It turned out that he didn't come to school very much in the late 3rd year of high school because he became a father. Zhu Wenxue seemed to have been petrified, he just stood there motionless. Ling Siyuan still hugged Ling Chen tightly, turned her head quietly, opened one eye, and glanced at Zhu Wenxue. Teacher, it's already dark, your parents will be worried if you don't go home again. Zhu Wenxue was finally brought back to God by this sentence. She lowered her eyes, and her mood changed 1,000 times, but she did not forget the main purpose of coming here today. Teacher isn't going home right now, I want to talk to you. She really couldn't say the word dad, so she could only look at Ling Chen directly. Let's talk. As if he didn't see Zhu Wenxue's meaningful eyes, Ling Chen said nonchalantly, okay. This exchange made Siyuan confused. He furrowed his brows tightly, his eyeballs gurgling, and just as he was thinking about what to do next, someone patted the back of his head. Go get the teacher a glass of water. Alas, I don't know what to do. Ling Siyuan let out a huh and ran to the kitchen without changing his shoes. Then Ling Chen raised his chin and signaled Zhu Wenxue to follow him in. Please come in. In this area where every inch of land is expensive, the house of Ling Siyuan's family is surprisingly large, and it is still a duplex. The decoration looks very simple at first glance, but actually took a lot of thought and probably cost a lot of money. Of course, it can also be seen that there are children in the family. The huge living room was so full of toys that it was hard to find a place to stand, let alone a sofa. Ling Chen probably didn't keep this in mind. He had reached the living room, only to realize that there was no room for people to sit here. He paused for a moment, then turned his head and walked in another direction. Come to the study. The study is not much better than the living room. It's just that what is piled up is not toys, but all kinds of miscellaneous things. And I don't see any musical and artistic temperament, but they are all full of commercial taste. A few album covers of Ling Chen hung on the wall, and there was a whiteboard beside the computer desk, which seemed to be filled with schedule notices and the like. The only source of light in the room is the floor lamp next to the sofa. After Ling Chen came in, he looked around hastily, then walked to the sofa, and swept all the paper documents on it to the corner. Then he turned around and said, Please sit down. Zhu Wenxue. She was both disgusted and curious, and sat on the corner of the sofa with her hands tucked in her thighs, restraining her desire to look at the big star's residence. Ling Chen felt much more at ease. With one hand in his pocket, he bowed down on the sofa and picked up a piece of paper to look at it. He probably didn't understand what it was, so he threw it aside casually, and then sat down. Are you Ling Siyuan's head teacher? To be precise, I am Ling Siyuan's Chinese teacher. While speaking, Zhu Wenxue quietly looked at him several times. But I couldn't see any difference in his expression. Didn't you recognize her? Because the former head teacher is on maternity leave, I will take the place of the head teacher temporarily. Ling Chen still had no expression fluctuations, so calm that he even nodded towards her indifferently. Hello. Do you want to remind me? But it would be embarrassing if she still didn't remember her old classmate after reminding her. Zhu Wenxue hesitated for a while, then said, My surname is Zhu. The word was deliberately emphasized. Ling Chen really looked up at her. Okay, congratulations, teacher. Zhu Wenxue. I don't even think about it, I guess I completely forgot about it. Never mind. Let's get down to business first. Zhu Wenxue tucked the hair that blocked his eyes behind his ears, sat up straighter, and looked at Ling Chen seriously. I'm sorry to disturb you so late, but I don't usually see you, so I took him home today, and I wanted to talk to you about his situation by the way. Different from Zhu Wenxue's seriousness, Ling Chen loosely leaned on the sofa and said casually, You say. Zhu Wenxue. Alas, this attitude. First of all, Ling Siyuan was not picked up at school today, do you know that? Ling Chen rolled his eyes. Didn't he have a nanny to pick him up? Zhu Wenxue, sometimes something goes wrong with the babysitter, like today, the child is waiting alone in the classroom, and no guardian can be contacted. She paused, if I didn't go to the classroom to take a look, what should I do if the child ran around alone and had an accident? Hearing this, Ling Chen finally became serious, understood. Zhu Wenxue shook his head slightly, and sighed, I understand that you are very busy with work, and it is not convenient to pick up and drop off your children, but you should not forget the most basic responsibilities. Okay. Ling Chen nodded, I will follow him. Before finishing speaking, Ling Siyuan cautiously opened the door and came in with a water glass in his hand. Teacher, please drink water. Zhu Wenxue took it, and nodded with a smile, thank you, Yuan is so good. You go to do your homework first, the air conditioner is off, and add a coat. Ling Siyuan nodded and said yes, but didn't leave immediately, but looked at Ling Chen. It took a while for the man on the sofa to feel the child's gaze, and belatedly raised his head to receive his signal. Oh, go ahead. Ling Siyuan winked at him quietly, then turned around and ran out. After making sure Ling Siyuan couldn't hear him, Zhu Wenxue said earnestly, you should spend more time with him and care about him, instead of just making him afraid of you. Ling Chen smiled, he looks like he's afraid of me. Only dare to go out with your approval, isn't that called fear? But this is not the most urgent issue right now. After all, how many children in this world are not afraid of their father? Zhu Wenxue, also about grades. Ling Chen, how much did he score? Zhu Wenxue took 2 sips of hot water expressionlessly to restrain his emotions. Scores are not the ultimate goal, we need to see the learning status reflected in the exam. Obviously, Ling Siyuan is very smart and excellent in mathematics, but his study habits are not good enough. That's great, especially the subjects that need to be recited, it's too sloppy. Ling Chen nodded, indeed, it's very similar to me. Zhu Wenxue murmured in his heart, you are quite proud of composing lyrics on the spot without the teleprompter? At ordinary times, we should pay more attention to cultivating his study habits. This is something that will benefit his whole life, instead of focusing on the scores rudely. Oh, okay. Unknowingly, Zhu Wenxue had output a lot of ideas in learning this matter, and the water in the glass was almost finished, and she remembered to compare another thing that was more troublesome. By the way, Ling Siyuan was still fighting at school today. Chen was a little shocked, he started fighting when he was only in the 1st grade. Zhu Wenxue's hands holding the cup froze in the air, and the corners of his mouth twitched unnaturally. You don't know he's in the 2nd grade. There is no need for Ling Chen to say anything, Zhu Wenchu understands. She looked away and tried to adjust her mentality. If Ling Chen recognizes her, it will be easier to communicate with him if he has some affection for an old classmate. Now it is a complete stranger facing a big star, Zhu Wenchu is not sure what attitude he should adopt. After all, she never dreamed that one day she would sit in the home of a big star and talk so closely. It also had to revolve around his never-disclosed unmarried child. After thinking for a while, she said gently, the reason for the fight is that some classmates said that his mother doesn't want him anymore, and his father doesn't want him anymore either. Hearing this, Chen Chen's eyes gradually darkened. The casual expression on his face finally gradually disappeared, and he looked at Zhu Wenchu seriously. On the contrary, Zhu Wenchu was a little nervous. She didn't look at him again, looked away, and said, I think so. The child is at the age when he needs his father's company. Do you think there is any way to balance work and family? Oh. Ling Chen said, understood, I will leave more time for a sudden ringtone of the mobile phone rang. Ling Chen touched his trouser pocket, but couldn't find the phone, looked down at the sofa, and finally took out the source of the ringtone from the pile of files. Hey! When he answered the phone, he sat up a little bit. Well, he suddenly stopped, glanced at Zhu Wenchu, and then said, I'll accompany Ling Siyuan to do homework for a while before coming over. As soon as the voice fell, he pressed the phone. Zhu Wenchu is a little more satisfied. But she also knew that Ling Chen would probably be busy with something later, so she got up and said, then don't bother me today, and we will keep in touch if there is anything to do in the future. Row. Ling Chen stood up following Zhu Wenchu, thank you. He suddenly got stuck again. Obviously, forgot what her last name was. Really no impression at all? My name is Zhu Wenchu. Zhu Wenchu looked at Ling Chen and said word by word, blessings, warmth, books. Sure enough, Ling Chen had a different reaction. He raised his eyebrows, his eyes gradually focused, fixed on Zhu Wenchu's face. After all, the opposite is a popular star. Seeing him like this, Zhu Wenchu was a little nervous, and his fingers unconsciously grabbed the skirt. It must be, remembering her now? Moreover, even if she didn't have much contact with Ling Chen in high school, she wouldn't be completely forgotten. Just last year, she met a classmate in the next class of junior high school, and they recognized her at a glance. Ling Chen, your name? Zhu Wenchu stared at him, blinked his big eyes, and encouraged him with his eyes. Yes, that's the name. Think carefully. Did you remember anything? Ling Chen, it sounds nice. Zhu Wenchu, thank you. Ling Chen tilted his head, looked at Zhu Wenchu from a different angle, and smiled. It's the same name as one of my high school classmates. After 2 seconds of silence, Zhu Wenchu breathed a sigh of relief, and looked at him flatly. Have you ever thought about it? Perhaps. I'm your high school classmate. The next morning, the air still smelled of rain, but the temperature was quite a bit higher than before. Autumn Tiger arrived as promised, and Zhu Wenchu changed into a summer shirt dress when he went out, but it was still a bit stuffy. She didn't sleep well last night, and got up a little late today, almost on time for school. When passing by the door of the classroom, the students have basically arrived. The first class was English class. Zhu Wenchu didn't make a sound, just stood by the window to take a look at the situation. Dozens of children were running around, and Ling Siyuan was wearing a British suit, which was particularly conspicuous among the children. He seemed to be in a particularly good mood, taking a bunch of snacks and sharing them with his classmates. Looking at Ling Siyuan's lively figure, Zhu Wenchu was still in a daze. From last night until now, she hadn't figured out how she broke through a star's shocking secret when she was clearly just doing an ordinary home visit. The star was also a high school classmate with her for 3 years. Thinking of this, Zhu Wenchu laughed at himself. She remembered that last night, she had to say the name word by word, so that Chen barely remembered her. And he obviously didn't have any special memories of her, and the two looked at each other awkwardly for a long while, but couldn't figure out why. It's really a turn of events. In the past, Ling Chen was inconspicuous, and Zhu Wenchu was sought after in school. Now Ling Chen is very popular, but Zhu Wenchu himself has become an ordinary person. Someone in the class saw Zhu Wenchu and yelled. The classroom was immediately silent, and everyone ran to their seats. Ling Xiyuan also looked back, met Shang Zhu Wenchu's eyes, and smiled at her. Zhu Wenchu came back to his senses, waved to him, and called him to the corridor of the classroom. She bent down and touched Ling Xiyuan's head. How is it? Did your father scold you after the teacher left yesterday? No, no. Ling Xiyuan laughed with dimples. Dad sent me to school today. What? Zhu Wenchu subconsciously looked back towards the school gate. Although it was early in the morning, but during school time, there were endless streams of parents outside the school. Ling Chen is really bold, isn't he afraid of being discovered? Really? Ling Xiyuan said, he got up early to make breakfast for me. It seems that the conversation I had with him last night was still useful. I just don't know how long it will last. Okay, the teacher knows, go back to the classroom and prepare for class. Back in the office, the preparatory bell for the first class just rang. Zhu Wenchu opened the homework piled up on the table, and was about to write and correct, when a female voice suddenly sounded behind him. Mr. Zhu, you don't have class right now. Zhu Wenchu turned his head and saw a woman in her 30s standing at the door with a strange face. It wasn't until the little boy behind the woman came in that Zhu Wenchu suddenly realized that this should be Wang Xiaopeng's mother. It's over. Although the other party hadn't spoken yet, Zhu Wenchu had already predicted that he would not be safe again this morning. Wang Xiaopeng's mother? What's the matter? Wang Xiaopeng's mother wore a pair of redrimmed glasses, her hair was combed docilely, she walked unhurriedly, with a slight smile on her face, which made Zhu Wenchu a little apprehensive. That's right. Wang Xiaopeng was beaten up in school yesterday. I came to school today to ask for an explanation. Zhu Wenchu. After Mama Wang finished speaking, the other teachers in the office turned their heads to look at her. Seeing that the parent had a face that was not easy to fool with, they shook their heads and continued to do their own things. There was also a female teacher who cast a pitiful look at Zhu Wenchu. Mother Wang, sit down first. Zhu Wenchu moved a chair for her, and after the person was seated, he said, it's not as serious as you imagined, it's not being beaten, it's just the children playing around. I criticized them yesterday, and I also gave Xiaopeng's father called and explained the situation. Criticize? Mama Wang raised her eyebrows immediately. Ling Xiyuan was the first to strike. Why criticize Xiaopeng? Because Xiaopeng said. Okay, teacher, you don't need to talk about it. Wang Mama raised her hand and stopped Zhu Wenchu's explanation. I have already understood what happened last night. My husband doesn't care, so you don't have to listen to him. I will tell you now. I want Xiyuan's parents to give me an explanation, otherwise how can I rest assured that my child will stay in the same class with such a rude and violent person? What if I am taken away in the future? As a teacher who just graduated, Zhu Wenchu has never met such parents. She had question marks all over her face. She didn't know how Mama Wang's logic came about, so she turned her head and wanted to ask what Wang Xiaopeng said when she went back last night. But as soon as Wang Xiaopeng saw her eyes, he immediately hid behind his mother. How about this? Zhu Wenchu had no choice but to say, Xiaopeng, go to the classroom and call Ling Xiyuan over. After Wang Xiaopeng left, Zhu Wenchu said, Mother Wang, it is common for children to fight and fight. They already shook hands and made peace yesterday. I don't think there is any need to bring up the unpleasant things. The reason for the handshake is because of you and Sini, teacher. Mama Wang said righteously. Xiaopeng's face was scratched with blood marks. I asked him what was the matter, and he cried bitterly. It can be seen that the child is dissatisfied, so today Siyu and my parents must give me an explanation. Zhu Wenshi really only cared about Ling Siyuan, who had a nosebleed all over his face yesterday, but later found out that Wang Xiaopeng was also dying, and there were indeed 2 bloodstains on his face that could not be seen unless he looked carefully. In short, no matter what Zhu Wenshi says now, Wang Xiaopeng's mother must insist on ordering Siyuan's parents to come and apologize in person, and refuses to admit that there is something wrong with Wang Xiaopeng's actions. In this case, Zhu Wenshi felt that Ling Chen must communicate with Wang Xiaopeng's mother. As for how to communicate, we will talk about it later. Okay, I'll help you contact Ling Siyuan's parents. Zhu Wenshi said. However, Ling Siyuan's parents are very busy and may not be free immediately. No wonder. Mother Wang sneered and didn't say anything else, but her tone made people very uncomfortable. It seems that Ling Siyuan has touched some character issue. Just at this moment, Ling Siyuan came over with Wang Xiaopeng. The 2 children probably didn't explain the matter clearly on the way, so as soon as Ling Siyuan came in, his big eyes fluttered in confusion, and he asked anxiously, "Mr. Zhu, why did you invite the parents again?" Before Zhu Wenshi could speak, Ms. Wang completely ignored the existence of Ling Siyuan, and said directly, "I don't care how busy his parents are, if they hit our child, they must give an explanation. How about this, Teacher Zhu, you call his parents, give me a call, and I will communicate in person." Zhu Wenshi ignored her, and comforted Ling Siyuan while flipping through the phone in his bag. "It's okay, just chatting briefly. You see, the teacher chatted with your father yesterday, and he didn't attack you, did he?" Seeing that her movements were not neat enough, Wang Xiaopeng's mother put on a cold face, quickly took out her mobile phone and handed it to Ling Siyuan. "Come on, call your parents yourself." Of course Ling Siyuan didn't answer the phone, but looked at Zhu Wenshi helplessly. "Why are you calling my parents?" Yuan, about what happened yesterday, Wang Xiaopeng's mother still wants to communicate with your father. Don't be afraid, just call. The teacher is here, and your father won't scold you." Seeing that Ling Siyuan still didn't move, Wang Xiaopeng's mother said, "If you don't call, then I will directly find your father's contact information in the Ding Talk group. When the time comes, I'll call." Ling Siyuan reached out quickly, almost snatching the mobile phone from Wang Xiaopeng's mother. Seeing that he panicked, Wang Xiaopeng's mother snorted and stared at him with her arms folded. While pressing the key, Ling Siyuan secretly looked at Zhu Wenshi's face, and got the numbers wrong several times in a panic. After dawdling for a while, he made the call. With the certainty that no one would answer the phone, Zhu Wenshi lowered his eyes, thinking about how to deal with Wang Xiaopeng's mother. Unexpectedly, a few seconds later, "Father." Ling Siyuan's timid voice sounded, "Can you come to school?" Zhu Wenshi raised his head abruptly. Unexpectedly, it was so easy to connect. However, in the next second, Ling Siyuan said hello twice, then blinked and pinched the phone tremblingly. He hung up. "Zhu Wenshi, hang up, hang up. Who is this?" Wang Xiaopeng's mother protested, "Fight again." Ms. Wang frightened Ling Siyuan, then turned her head and said to Zhu Wenshi, "You saw it too. With this attitude, how can I rest assured that my child will be in the same class as his child?" Zhu Wenshi knew that if Chen didn't say anything about today's incident, Ms. Wang would not stop there. She took the phone and called in person. After ringing for a few seconds, the call connected. Before Zhu Wenshi opened his mouth, Ling Chen suppressed his anger and said, "Am I free, Ling Siyuan?" "You have something to go to you, Ling Siyuan's father." Zhu Wenshi interrupted him and said, "I am Teacher Zhu, Ling Siyuan's class teacher." There was silence on the other end of the phone for 2 seconds. Afterwards, Ling Chen's voice sank, but he was still sleepy. "Did he fight at school again?" "No, he is very good today." Zhu Wenshi glanced at Wang's mother, cleared his throat, and said seriously, but about yesterday's fight, another classmate's mother wants to communicate with you. When do you think you have time to come to school? She knew that Ling Chen would definitely not come, but she still had to tell the whole story. It won't take up a lot of your time, and it's good for Ling Siyuan and his classmates to get along well. Please take some time to come over anyway, okay? I'm really busy and I don't have time. Ling Chen pondered for a moment, then sighed, I'll come over after school. I also understand that you are very busy. Zhu Wenxia suddenly stopped, not sure if he had auditory hallucinations. What did you say? I said. Ling Chen said word by word, I'll come over after school. Okay, I see. After hanging up the phone, Zhu Wenxia froze for 2 seconds before returning the phone to Ms. Wang. Why doesn't this person play cards according to common sense? Unable to understand, Zhu Wenxia still honestly conveyed, his father can't leave during the day, so he can come to school after school, is it okay? Ms. Wang was actually not very satisfied, but she thought that she would indeed have something to do later, so she reluctantly nodded. All right then, I'll come back after school, be on time. During the whole day, except for teaching the 2 classes, Zhu Wenxia was a little absent-minded at other times. Ling Chen actually agreed to come to school. Zhu Wenxia has no experience in dealing with disputes between parents, let alone one of them is a popular star. She didn't know what would happen after Wang Xiaopeng's mother recognized Ling Chen. Will everyone know that Ling Chen has a 7-year-old child soon? Can Ling Siyuan live and study normally in the future? And as a teacher, how should she deal with the curiosity of Ling Siyuan from the class and school classmates? With all kinds of thoughts lingering, it was time to leave school in a blink of an eye. Not 2 minutes after the bell rang, Wang Xiaopeng's mother waited in the office with her child. After a while, Ling Siyuan also came to the office. Sitting face to face, the big 2 and the young ones were not easy to talk and laugh, and the atmosphere was a bit stiff. Backed by his own mother, Wang Xiaopeng started writing homework leisurely. Ling Siyuan was terrified, took a pen and pretended to paint, and peeked at Zhu Wenxia from time to time. Half an hour later, the students had basically finished their walks, and the campus was as quiet as a small park in the suburbs. The thick black clouds pushed the daylight away, and in the blink of an eye, the sky became as gloomy as night. Wang Xiaopeng's mother got impatient and patted the table, Didn't you say you will come after school? It's been more than half an hour, I hope you will call him again, teacher. Zhu Wenxia thought that Ling Chen probably wanted to dove, but felt relieved. Just picked up the phone, the office door was knocked. Zhu Wenxia looked outside the door, froze for a moment, and said a little unnaturally, Ling Siyuan's parents are here. Mama Wang immediately turned her head and was about to speak, but the word "you" got stuck in her throat when she saw the person coming. The sky was already dark, and Ling Chen was wearing a black sweater and black trousers. Although he was thin, he was tall and straight enough to block the remaining sunset and make the small office even heavier. Besides, he was wearing a black mask. Most of his face was covered, only a pair of dark eyes were exposed, but it did not hide his unique temperament. Inexplicably catching people's attention, not like ordinary people living in the streets and alleys. Mother Wang obviously didn't expect Ling Siyuan's father to appear in this image. Moreover, she always felt that this person's eyebrows and eyes were familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had seen them before. In short, this was different from the parents she expected, which made her lose her momentum for no reason. As Ling Chen approached, Mother Wang stood up and said with her chin raised, I am Wang Xiaopeng's mother, hello. When Ling Chen passed her, he glanced sideways at her, politely said hello, then, without reading Zhu Wen's book, he went straight to Ling Siyuan, and tapped his forehead with his fingers. Are you still going to find something for me? Making Siyuan feel guilty, she didn't dare to look at him directly, but quietly hid behind Zhu Wenxia. He didn't look for trouble today. Zhu Wenxia protected Ling Siyuan, and motioned Ling Chen to look at Wang's mother, Wang Xiaopeng's mother wanted to talk to you about yesterday's fight. Only then did Ling Chen turn around slowly and give Wang Mama a positive look. Mama Wang answered immediately, your child beat someone and scratched my child's face. Now it's a civilized society, and I've never seen such an uncivilized person. What's the difference between this and a gangster? And Ling Chen nodded, yeah, but I'm very busy, so just tell me, what do you want to talk about? Mama Wang. How did she hear the feeling that you want to use a knife or a gun? You looking at Ling Chen twice, Ms. Wang lost her confidence, but she didn't want to lose her momentum, so she began to criticize, what time is it? Say it's good to leave school, do you have any sense of time? Sorry. Ling Chen said sincerely, I just found the wrong school. Mama Wang. Zhu Wenchu. The scene seems to have taken a strange turn. The corner of Wang Xiaopeng's mother's mouth twitched, she regained her composure, and said, then what do you mean you're wearing a mask? Are you polite? Zhu Wenchu's scalp suddenly tightened, and he looked at Ling Chen nervously. In case you take off your mask. If you are sick, you will be contagious. Ling Chen raised his hand, making a gesture to take off the mask, mind? Then I'll take it off. Do not. Mama Wang pulled Wang Xiaopeng back a step, and looked at Ling Chen and Ling Xiyuan in surprise. It really is too much to worry about. Zhu Wenchu frowned and said, speak well, don't scare people. Hearing this, Ling Chen turned his head and glanced at Zhu Wenchu, the impatient look on his brows disappeared, and his tone became calm, oh, I see, Teacher Zhu. The two exchanged a few words, and Mama Wang felt that she was being tricked. But her aura had already dropped a bit, and it was hard to pull it up halfway, so she could only pretend to be considerate. I'm not a troublesome person, so let's just fight. If you have to apologize, then apologize. I won't pursue it. Row. Ling Chen took a step back, leaned against Zhu Wenchu's desk, bent down and asked Ling Xiyuan, who made the first move. In just a few minutes, Ling Xiyuan had actually vaguely sensed the current situation, unknowingly straightened his back and straightened his head, and said in a spirited voice, me. Zhu Wenchu. Are you proud? Ling Chen gave an and raised his chin in Wang Xiaopeng's direction. Ling Xiyuan didn't understand what Ling Chen meant, and blinked in confusion, hey. In the next second, Ling Chen grabbed Ling Xiyuan by the collar, sent him forward, and directly pushed him in front of Wang Xiaopeng. Apologize to someone. This action scared Wang Xiaopeng and his mother back 2 steps. Really fucking? Zhu Wenchu on the side was also dumbfounded. Is this how you always treat children? Is it your own? She felt that it was not Ling Xiyuan who was being grabbed, but her own heart, and she was even afraid that Ling Xiyuan would burst into tears in the next second. But the reality is that Ling Xiyuan is not only not afraid, but also vigorously straightened his wrinkled neckline, and then he raised his chest and shouted, Wang Xiaopeng is sorry. I will never hit you again. Wang Xiaopeng's mother. This is called an apology? But the person involved, Wang Xiaopeng, was about to cry in fright, choked up and waved his hands, no, it doesn't matter. Ling Chen watched the whole thing calmly, and even took Zhu Wenchu with a pen and played with it casually. When Wang Xiaopeng was at a loss and pulled his mother's clothes, Ling Chen asked Wang's mother sincerely, are you satisfied with this? Mother Wang dared to say that she was dissatisfied. She was afraid that if she said it herself, if the other party asked, then what else do you want, the matter would develop in a direction beyond her control. Of course, the main reason that prompted her to give up completely was that when Ling Chen reached out to pick up Ling Xiyuan, she noticed his watch. She is not afraid of powerful people, nor is she afraid of rich people. I'm afraid of being strong and rich. Oh, the children are all classmates. It's normal to fight and fight. Don't forget to take it to heart. We will still be good friends in the future. Let's not talk about it. After she finished speaking, She actually felt embarrassed herself and couldn't bear face, so she turned her head and looked at Zhu Wenqiu with her haughty chin as if changing her face. But Teacher Zhu, as the head teacher, you can't even handle children fighting well. How did you become this teacher? Zhu Wenqiu. Didn't I take care of it yesterday? She had just opened her mouth and hadn't fully uttered the words, only to hear a pop. A pen was lightly thrown onto the table, and Mama Wang trembled in front of her. Ling Chen's voice sounded behind Zhu Wenqiu. Then what else do you want? During the 3 seconds of silence in the entire office, a security guard passed by the window and glanced in. At this time, Zhu Wenqiu had no time to worry about whether Ling Chen would be recognized, she was only worried about whether this person would do it on the spot. Obviously, Wang Xiaopeng's mother also has this worry. She took Wang Xiaopeng's hand and took another step back, her eyes rolled left and right, and she didn't seize any opportunity to refute. Under Ling Chen's gaze, she held back for a long time and didn't know how stubborn she could be, so she stuck her neck and said without confidence, "What can I do? How dare I offend the teacher? I'm just a suggestion." After finishing speaking, without waiting for Zhu Wenqiu to say anything else, he pulled Wang Xiaopeng and planned to leave. Wait a minute. As soon as she turned around, she heard Ling Chen's voice thinking again. Is it your turn to apologize now? Mother Wang was stunned for a moment, then stiffly pushed her child. Wang Xiaopeng pouted and said, "The teacher told me to apologize yesterday." So Mama Wang immediately raised her eyebrows. I'm not talking about him." Ling Chen stared at Mama Wang and didn't say anything else. Under his gaze, Mama Wang struggled for a long time, then turned to Zhu Wenqiu and said, "Sorry, teacher, I said something too serious just now." It's okay, let's have more." Before Zhu Wenqiu could speak politely, Ms. Wang took her child and turned around to leave the office. When the mother and son disappeared completely, Ling Chen stood up straight, turned to Zhu Wenqiu and said, "I'll leave too if there's nothing else to do." Zhu Wenqiu didn't expect that today's parents' meeting would end in this way. She was almost out of the situation and nodded ignorantly. Okay. It wasn't until the big and small figures left the office that she realized what she had forgotten, and quickly grabbed her bag and chased him out. Ling Xiyuan. Wait. The two stopped and turned their heads. Zhu Wenqiu ran up to Ling Chen in 2 or 3 steps. Don't you pay much attention to Ding Talk Group? I never see you reply when I usually post notifications. What? Ling Chen was puzzled. Things. Zhu Wenqiu. Also, how could one expect Ling Chen, a big star, to use nails like this? How about this, let's add a WeChat. Zhu Wenqiu lowered his head and began to take out his mobile phone. I usually contact you directly on WeChat if there is anything that Ling Xiyuan needs, so as not to get through all the time. Ling Chen's eyes fell on her mobile phone for 2 seconds, and then slowly moved to her face, neither refusing nor agreeing. But inexplicably smiled. Zhu Wenqiu felt that his smile had a deep meaning, and immediately added, "It's just about communicating with Yuan. I will never give your WeChat to others, don't worry." Father. Let's add. Ling Xiyuan also grabbed Ling Chen's clothes and shook them gently, pouted, and said pitifully, "Otherwise I won't be able to find you every time." Facing Ling Xiyuan's frantically suggestive eyes, Ling Chen sneered and took out his phone. Yes. He looked down at his phone, opened the WeChat QR code, and said calmly, "But I don't guarantee that I can see and reply to your message in time." It's okay, hey. After scanning the QR code, Zhu Wenqiu raised his eyes in surprise. You didn't set up friend verification? Can you add it directly? Ling Chen didn't speak, and looked straight at Zhu Wenqiu with a faint smile. In late autumn, it is sweltering and hot, and even the air is hot and dry. Zhu Wenqiu felt that Ling Chen's smile was chilly. After staring at each other for a while, Zhu Wenqiu was still puzzled. Ling Chen closed his eyes, turned his wrist, opened the friend list, and scrolled down. I found Zhu Wenchu's WeChat account. Zhu Wenchu. Then, he clicked on the dialog box and sent a 1. Sorry, you are not the other party's friend yet, please add the other party's friend first before chatting. Zhu Wenchu. Help! Help! Why is this so? At the end of this midsummer, Zhu Wenchu's cheeks are turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye, just like the sunset glow in the sky. She didn't remember when she added Ling Chen at all, and she didn't remember that there was such a person in her chat at all. I don't know if it was when I cleaned up my friends, I deleted all the people who didn't have a note or a word. When I deleted it, I decided that there would be no more intersections in this life. Who would have thought that they would be captured face to face by the deity? That. Zhu Wenchu's face has changed several times, but Ling Chen just looked at her and didn't speak, as if I'd like to see how you explain it. I'm really sorry, I didn't delete my friends on purpose. Ling Chen even blinked slowly. So. And Zhu Wenchu's fingertips were hot, and his eyelashes kept flapping to cover up his erratic eyes. I forgot that I added you as a friend. I didn't remember it at the time, so I deleted it by mistake. After a while, Ling Chen said softly, you might as well not explain. Then grabbed Ling Siyuan's school bag strap, turned around and went down the stairs. Twilight is closing in, and there is only the last ray of setting sun in the sky surging under the black clouds. In the kitchen, the pork ribs wrapped in wheat flour were put into the pan, and the hot oil burst into flames, overflowing with aroma. Ling Xinjian returned home, took off his coat and threw it on the sofa, then went to the cooking counter in the restaurant to pour water for a drink. After taking a breath, Ling Xinjian wanted to ask Auntie Xiao, the nanny, about her son's situation, but she was cooking, there was a lot of oily smoke, and the door was closed, so she shouldn't be able to hear the sound from outside. So he decided to go directly to his son's room to have a look. Holding a water glass, just about to take a step, the door of the house suddenly opened. Who else is coming at this point? Ling Xinjian was wondering when he saw his own son walking in with his school bag on his back. Dad! Ling Siyuan jumped up and hugged his waist, rubbed his hair, then turned to look at the kitchen, it smells so good. I'm hungry. Let's eat. Following behind him was Ling Chen. Ling Chen walked in, glanced at his cousin and manager, you're back. Then, without waiting for him to answer, he walked straight to the study. Wait a minute. Ling Xinjian finally came back to his senses, ignored his son, and followed Ling Chen. Did you take Yuan out to play? No. Ling Chen took off the mask and folded it, then threw it into the trash can in the aisle. I'll pick him up from school. What? Ling Xinjian thought he heard it wrong. Are you going to pick up Yuan from school? Did you pick him up at school? If not, what's wrong with you? Ling Xinjian almost choked on his own saliva, and his face was flushed. Auntie Xiao doesn't know how to pick it up? Do you want to trouble you? Compared with the excited Ling Xinjian, Ling Chen's mood is much calmer. He pushed open the study door, piled the things on the sofa into a corner, and then nestled in as if he had no bones, and picked up a magazine to cover his eyes. Is there any problem with me picking up my nephew from school? It's okay to be someone else. But if you make Chen do this, there is a big problem. Ling Xinjian laughed back angrily, and put the water glass heavily on the table. It's interesting, Ling Chen, other male artists don't even dare to get in the same car as the female producer, so you're better off, go directly to school to pick up the kids. Ling Chen didn't speak, and didn't know if he was listening. Ling Xinjian's voice gradually cooled down. It doesn't matter, you just pick it up every day. It's nothing more than being photographed and the whole world knows that you have a son who is over 7 years old. This huge traffic is something that others dream of. After a while, the mouth under the magazine moved. The real ones are afraid, what are the fake ones afraid of? Ling Xing said. It seems quite reasonable. After a while of silence. Don't give me such nonsense. Ling Xinjian came back to his senses, and scolded his head and face, "Why haven't you been so caring before? I think you are just taking a few days off to give you some leisure." "Okay." Ling Chen waved to Ling Xinjian, "Go and worry about your son's studies, don't worry about me." This obviously shouldn't be said by an artist to his manager. But the situation of Ling Chen and Ling Xinjian is different. Ling Xing had a background in linguistics and law. He was originally a legal counselor at Ling Chen's brokerage company, and later became his executive broker, specializing in business inquiries. Later, Ling Chen left the original brokerage company and started his own business. At the same time, Ling Xinjian also became more and more mature, possessing the comprehensive ability of a broker. Naturally, this cousin became Ling Chen's manager and studio partner. But in terms of the company's equity division, Ling Chen is the boss and has the absolute right to speak. Therefore, although Ling Xinjian is in full charge of Ling Chen's business work, Ling Chen has always made his own decisions when it comes to music and personal freedom. Rho. Ling Xinjian sees that Ling Chen doesn't get in, so he can only convince himself that there have been many disputes during this period, and it is because he is too weak. But thinking about it carefully, it's really not a big deal for Ling Chen to pick up a child. If he really wants to be photographed, he can just clarify it. Can his son really become Ling Chen's son? Never mind. Ling Xing cursed a few words, and was about to turn around to go out, saw Ling Chen's sleeping appearance, and couldn't help but said, "Why are you sleeping on the sofa? You need to catch up on sleep and go to sleep in your room." Ling Chen's house was being renovated recently, and it was not convenient to stay in a hotel, so he simply stayed at Ling Xinjian's house for a while. After a while, Ling Chen let out a tisk impatiently. "You have time to worry about where I sleep, so you might as well take care of your son's report card. My son is much easier to manage than you." Ling Xinjian opened the door, couldn't hold back, and instructed, "But you should be more careful in the future. Go to some school if you have nothing to do. If you want to play with him, you can play at home." Ling Chen turned over, and there was sleepiness in his voice. "Don't worry, I don't have that much time to worry about your son." Although when adding Ling Chen WeChat, Zhu Wenxia said that it was convenient for communication. But for several days, she has been embarrassed to talk to others. Until the evening of this day, Zhu Wenxia finished class preparation at home, and a friend invited her to have dinner with her. The two agreed to meet at the mall, and Zhu Wenxia took the subway there, replying to messages from his parents along the way. Walking out of the subway entrance, the pedestrian street is bustling and lively. As soon as Zhu Wenxia looked up, he saw Ling Chen's watch endorsement advertisement on the large LDE screen of the shopping mall building. Seeing this face, she was still in a daze. Just a week ago, Zhu Wenxia lived a 3.1 life in classrooms, offices, and cafeterias. Sometimes when I see the news about Ling Chen, I still feel emotional. I used to be a classmate, but now I have become two types of people who are far away. And now, when she saw Ling Chen again, she could only think about his unknown son. And the embarrassment of being found out that she had unilaterally deleted WeChat. How about explaining again? After all, if there is no accident in the next 5 years, she will be Ling Xiyuan's teacher, and she will have to deal with Ling Chen, and it is not a solution to have a rift between them. So, Zhu Wenxia immediately took out his phone and turned to Ling Chen's WeChat. After typing a few words, she felt wrong again. Things are already like this, and it seems useless for her to explain. Maybe a big star didn't take it to heart at all. Right. Living in the luxurious Vanity Fair every day, how can I have the time to care about whether a high school classmate deletes me? Thinking of this, Zhu Wenxia deleted those words again. Why don't you talk to him about something else, or at least break the ice? It happened that Ling Xiyuan sprained his ankle while playing around at school the day before yesterday, and he didn't know if it was still uncomfortable. Thinking of this, Zhu Wenxia was still a little unhappy. The child walks with a limp, so why doesn't he ask a question as a father? But after typing a few words, Zhu Wenchu hesitated again. It happened the day before yesterday, and she only talked about it today. Will it seem irresponsible? Forget it, let him go. Zhu Wenchu deleted these words angrily. Fingers are pressing. Ling Chen's WeChat name suddenly changed to a line of the other party is typing. Zhu Wenchu subconsciously stopped, his eyebrows twitched, and he stared at the dialogue box between the two. In the next second, Ling Chen's news really jumped out. See, I wish the teacher hey? I really want to come here. I wish Wenchu a quick reply. Zhu Wenchu, I'm here. Zhu Wenchu, what's the matter? The string of the other party is typing appears again. But this time, the string of input states appeared repeatedly, but Ling Chen's news was still delayed. Could it be that he was writing a small composition? Several minutes passed, and the new message finally popped out. See, how is my child doing at school today? Zhu Wenchu. In the busy commercial street, Zhu Wenchu stood in the middle of the road, staring at the phone expressionlessly. I've never been so speechless in my life. Zhu Wenchu, I may not be very clear. See? Zhu Wenchu, because today is the weekend. Ling Chen did not reply to the message. The first chat between the two stopped at that awkward conversation. I don't know if he is ashamed and embarrassed to speak again. In short, Zhu Wenchu and his friends returned home after gathering, and there was no activity on his WeChat. Zhu Wenchu didn't pay much attention to it at first, but when she finished her lesson preparation, she turned on her phone and saw that there were dozens of messages in Ding Talk, all of which were feedback on weekend homework from her parents. Only after becoming a teacher can I know that the pressure on the current parents is completely different from that of the previous parents. Everyone is young, and they don't even have a chance to take a breather when they come home from overtime work in the evening, and they are too busy to accompany their children to do their homework, and earnestly complete the tasks assigned by the teacher. In fact, Zhu Wenchu did not strictly require parents to accompany their children to do homework all the time. She believes that this is not conducive to children's ability to exercise independent thinking and self-management. But the parents all rolled up spontaneously, and she couldn't say that you don't care so much. Thinking about this looking at Ling Chen's chat records, Zhu Wenchu was a little speechless. What's the matter? If you have money, you can let your children grow wildly. Are you not afraid that the child will go astray in the future? Besides, this experimental primary school is not an ordinary school, it is one of the best in the whole Zhongcheng. The students' families do not say that they are either rich or expensive, but the overall quality is definitely top-notch, and there are no shortage of intellectual children in a class. Why don't graduate students from top normal colleges sharpen their heads and come here to be primary school teachers? In such a competitive environment, Ling Chen can be so irresponsible. Yes, she knew that Ling Siyuan's nanny was not an ordinary nanny, she paid a lot of money to take care of her life and tutor her studies. But can that be compared with father's accompanying growth education? Ling Chen can let go of this kind of thing, but Zhu Wenchu can't allow himself to turn a blind eye. This is her responsibility and mission as a teacher. So, she opened WeChat and sent Ling Chen a message. Zhu Wenchu, have you finished Ling Siyuan's homework? 20 minutes later. Zhu Wenchu? Row. Zhu Wenchu sneered and opened Weibo. She wants to see how busy this big star is. He was so busy that he didn't even have time to ask his own son. Unexpectedly, this time was chosen quite coincidentally. The first real-time content that popped up after searching for Ling Chen pointed out Ling Chen's whereabouts. Zhang Zibei go to bed early. The short hair in Mr. Zhang's live broadcast room today makes Ling Chen so handsome. I have passed out, sisters, come and collect my body later. Zhu Wenchu didn't know who this teacher Zhang was. She continued to browse this entry for a while before she figured out that this teacher Zhang was the famous Zhang Yuxuan. He is a milestone music producer in the Chinese music scene. He produced many familiar songs and made many singers popular in his early years. Ling Chen can be regarded as his close disciple, and Ling Chen usually calls him respectfully teacher. The song Classmate Xiaokan and its album of the same name that made Ling Chen famous were produced by Zhang Yuming. The producer has been in a semi-retired state for the past 2 years and has no new works, but he likes the live broadcast platform, where he chats with fans or sings old songs from time to time. Following these clues, Zhu Wenchu entered Zhang Yehuang's live broadcast room. As soon as the picture popped up, the entire screen was filled with Zhang Yehuang's face, which startled Zhu Wenchu. He squinted his eyes and leaned closer to the phone to adjust the lens. After fiddling with it for a while, there was finally no strange pendant on his head, and he leaned back on the sofa in relief. As soon as the person stepped back, all the previously blocked images were revealed. The living room of Zhang Yuxuan's house is a vertical hall structure. There is a dining table behind the sofa, and only one floor lamp is turned on. Ling Chen eats under the lamp. He is far away from the camera, and the light is not very bright, but it can still be seen that the hair has obvious trimming marks, it is much shorter, and the forehead is exposed, not as slumped as it was a few days ago. But Zhu Wenchu didn't care about that. She originally thought that Ling Chen's live broadcast was work, but looking at it after a while, it was obvious that he was eating at Zhang Yuxuan's house and then accidentally caught on camera, not busy with serious business at all. The moment Zhu Wenchu rolled his eyes, Zhang Yehuang turned his head and waved to Ling Chen. "Come here and have a chat, everyone is urging you." Hearing this, Ling Chen turned his head and glanced this way, then came over with a water glass. As he moved closer to the camera, his facial features gradually became clear. The neat short hair could no longer cover his eyes, and the bright light gathered in his eyes the moment he raised them. Even though they were separated by the mobile phone, it was as if they were staring at him across the air. Zhu Wenchu was slightly stunned at that moment, as if he found out that he was watching his live broadcast. Fortunately, he soon stopped looking directly at the camera and looked down at the barrage. In fact, Ling Chen is not very keen on this kind of idle live broadcast. If he had known that Zhang Yuxuan would broadcast live today, he would not have come to eat. But the person has already appeared in the camera, and it is impossible for him to refute his teacher's face. Weekend nights are the peak period of network traffic. There are so many bullet screens that it is impossible for Chen to see each of them clearly. He can only glance roughly to see which one is which. Zhu Wenchu sat at the desk, not emotional, nor agitated at all. After all, he didn't really come to watch Ling Chen's live broadcast. But seeing him seriously answering the questions in the barrage, Zhu Wenchu had some ideas. She still had a cold face, but the corners of her lips curled up in a slight mocking arc. She tapped her finger, and edited a sentence. "ZWS who loves oranges, will you broadcast live when you finish your homework?" As soon as it was sent out, Zhu Wenchu watched it being submerged in the barrage. However, the next second Ling Chen, "It's finished." Zhu Wenchu. She looked at the screen in disbelief and blinked. It happened that Ling Chen was also looking at the camera, his eyes seemed to meet. "Did you see it?" "Impossible? She just throws it out casually, isn't it?" Zhu Wenchu was a little dazed at this moment, he was stunned for a while, and when he looked down the phone again, the originally messy barrage on the screen had become a hole. It's all copy-pasted of the same sentence. "Pass it on, Ling Chen's new song is finished, and a new album will be released tomorrow." "Pass it on, Ling Chen's new song is finished, and a new album will be released tomorrow." "Pass it on, Ling Chen's new song is finished, and a new album will be released tomorrow." Zhu Wenchu. Oh. It turned out to be answering a fan's question. She said, how could it be possible for Ling Chen to see the message she sent in the vast barrage of smoke? After this wave of swiping passed, a fan whose name had a halo effect in the barrage started a new round of swiping. "Excuse me, do you write songs in isolation from the world, without water, electricity, and internet?" This fan seemed to be eccentric, but he was actually blaming Ling Chen for not appearing in public for too long. But Ling Chen didn't know whether he really didn't understand or pretended not to understand. He took a sip of water, leaned on the sofa, and said in a serious tone, "I will not disconnect. I want to reduce social interaction, but I will read the news when I have time." Zhu Wenchu. She sneered in front of the screen, then typed. "ZWS who loves oranges, then you can't look back, right?" After posting, she leaned on the back of the chair with her arms folded and continued to stare coldly at the man on the screen. At this time, Ling Chen, who had been looking down at the barrage, suddenly focused his eyes for a few seconds, and his focus retracted, as if he was thinking about something. Immediately afterwards, he lowered his head and touched his trouser bag, and found that it was empty, then turned his head and glanced at the dining table behind the sofa. "Wait a minute." He whispered something to the camera, then got up and walked towards the dining table. As his figure gradually moved away from the camera, Zhang Yuxuan moved to the center of the sofa with a smile on his side, occupying most of the screen, leaving only a blurry figure in the distance. Zhu Wenchu's interest also faded, and he felt that he was really a monk training Taoist priests, and his management was really lenient. The teacher is here to catch students who skipped classes, and she is here to catch parents. Boring. She yawned, straightened her waist, and was about to turn off her phone and take a shower. At this time, a new message popped up on the phone. Zhu Wenchu touched it casually, and the screen immediately switched to WeChat. "See, the homework is all done." Zhu Wenchu's waist suddenly became stiff. She stared straight at the chat box, then scanned the room inexplicably. Then with a little vigilance in his eyes, he kept his head away from the phone, stretched his arms and clicked on the screen, switching to the live broadcast room again. In the picture, one can vaguely see Ling Chen leaning against the sideboard, with his back slightly arched, his head bowed, and his hands raised in front of his chest. It is a standard posture for playing with a mobile phone. No way! Could it be that Ling Chen not only saw the barrage she posted, but also recognized her all of a sudden? These eyes are 8 stars and 8 diamonds, right? After a few seconds of stalemate, Zhu Wenchu patted his head and told himself that this was a coincidence, which was impossible. Ling Chen must have just remembered her news at this point in time. Yes, exactly. Zhu Wenchu, okay, just finish it. But even if he had identified himself, when replying to Ling Chen's message, Zhu Wenchu still had a guilty conscience and added another sentence. "Zhu Wenchu, I am mainly afraid that you will forget in a hurry, so I specially remind you." Zhu Wenchu, Ling Xiyuan's concentration is not concentrated, have you watched him do his homework? See, yes. Almost off. Ling Chen thought lightly. Zhu Wenchu, well, then you can continue to work. See, well. That night, Zhu Wenchu had a nightmare. She dreamed that many years later, she would still be Ling Xiyuan's teacher. On the way to the juvenile prison, he visited Ling Xiyuan who was arrested. She followed the prison guards through the winding corridors, and finally stopped outside a dark and damp iron door. Not long after, there was the sound of iron chains colliding inside. Zhu Wenchu raised his head abruptly, saw the familiar face through the bars, and exclaimed, "Ling Chen!" The cry woke her up. It was cool in early autumn, and Zhu Wenchu opened his eyes covered in sweat, staring at the ceiling in bewilderment, falling into a kind of half-asleep and half-awake chaos. 10 minutes passed, her thoughts came back, and she slowly turned her head to look at the clock. Fuck! It's 7:20. Before he had time to think about this outrageous dream, Zhu Wenchu scrambled to get up, wiped his face, picked up his bag and rushed out. Fortunately, the place where she lived was not far from the school, and it was not too much of a hindrance to get to the school by stepping on it. When I sat in the office, the homework collected by the team leaders was already placed on the table. Zhu Wenchu took a breath, stared at the stack of notebooks and sighed, then took out the small mirror and tidied up his messy hair, ready to go to class. At this time, someone knocked on the door. Zhu Wenxia turned his head and saw that Ling Siyuan was holding on to the door frame and dared not come in. What's wrong? Zhu Wenxia asked. It's time for class, why don't you go to the classroom? Ling Siyuan raised his arms, covered half of his face with a notebook, and ran over. Teacher, I just arrived at school to hand in my homework. Why is it so late today? Zhu Wenxia smiled and said, staying in bed. Diarrhea in the morning. Do you feel better? Much better. Zhu Wenxia took his homework book, read it casually, and found that the handwriting was more neat than usual. She bent her lips and asked, Yuan improved in her homework last night. Did Dad teach you to write? No, my dad went to bed. Ling Siyuan raised his head and said triumphantly, my uncle wrote it with me. Zhu Wenxia. The shallow smile froze at the corner of his mouth, turning into a stiff arc. No surprise. Zhu Wenxia took a deep breath and touched Ling Siyuan's head. Okay, you go back to class. After Ling Siyuan's back disappeared into the office, Zhu Wenxia changed his homework for a while. After thinking about it, I still couldn't help taking out my phone to find Ling Chen's WeChat. Fingers delete, and correct on the keyboard for a long while before saying a word. Zhu Wenxia, the school does not force parents to accompany their children to do their homework. If you really don't have time, you don't have to. At this point, Ling Chen returned quite quickly. C: C, all right, then I was looking for trouble yesterday. Zhu Wenxia: Aren't you a singer? Why did you play with me? Zhu Wenxia, Ling Siyuan has already told me that his uncle accompanied him to do the homework yesterday. In fact, you don't have to lie to me on purpose. See, Zhu Wenxia, after all. Zhu Wenxia, your children can't learn anything, and they won't deduct my salary. See. In the studio. The photographer snapped his fingers to signal the end of this part of shooting, and the makeup artists surrounding him immediately stepped forward with their tools on their backs to tidy up Ling Chen's styling. In order not to affect the lighting that was finally adjusted, the assistant directly brought a high stool over for Ling Chen to sit on the spot. Today's shooting is very important, it is a year-end blockbuster for a top fashion magazine in China, so Ling Xinjian naturally wants to be there in person. He stood behind the computer and looked at the samples, his eyes flickered, and he suddenly noticed something different. Ling Chen, who never carries a mobile phone with him at work, actually looks at his mobile phone during makeup retouching. He also had a speechless expression on his face. Ling Xinjian felt something new, stepped forward and tilted his head to look down. What are you looking at? You have such a strange expression. Before he finished speaking, Ling Chen immediately turned off the screen when he felt Ling Xinjian's gaze. Ling Xinjian paused. If he read it right just now, the person opposite Ling Chen's WeChat is a pink cartoon profile picture. Ling Xinjian shrank his neck and looked at Ling Chen gossipingly. What's the situation? Is there anything I can't see? Ling Chen ignored him at all, handed the hand to the assistant, then closed his eyes and raised his head, indicating that the makeup artist can continue to touch up the makeup. Ouch! So Ling Xinjian took another 2 steps back slowly, and looked at Ling Chen with his head up and down, mysterious, is your goddess Bai Yue Guang back? As soon as the words fell, Ling Chen frowned suddenly. This subtle expression change was like a lightning bolt, hitting Ling Xinjian directly on the forehead, making him feel that something was wrong. His expression and words froze at the same time, his eyes moved up inch by inch, and finally fixed on Ling Chen's face. Could it be that he really hit the mark with a joke? Ling Xinjian's inner fluctuations began to spread to the entire studio. When he came to his senses and realized that he was out of mouth and wanted to laugh and go, someone already asked excitedly, "What white moonlight? Does Ling Chen have a white moonlight?" At this point, with Ling Chen and Ling Xinjian as the center, the entire studio was extremely silent for 3 seconds, bursting out with gossiping curiosity. No wonder everyone is curious. The staff in this studio are all from the entertainment industry, and they have seen a lot of male stars who are beautiful on the surface and dirty in private. On the other hand, Ling Chen has been in full swing these past few years, but he is like a gossip insulator, not even gossip. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Loren. They have cooperated with Ling Chen several times, and they have been abroad for filming twice. After a long time of contact, let alone a girlfriend, they have not even met an ambiguous object. Therefore, many people have privately speculated about Ling Chen's sexual orientation. So at this moment, I suddenly heard Ling Chen's manager say that he has a goddess of white moonlight, who is not curious or excited. The goddess of white moonlight who is a popular male star, this is more interesting than some frigid person. The studio started to become noisy, and even the editor-in-chief who came to supervise the work came to Ling Chen and asked, "Really? I said there are so many sour love songs in your first album. Ouch, is it the age of first love? Writing it's really heartfelt. What does it look like? Do you have a picture?" Amidst the commotion, Ling Chen slowly opened his eyes, and looked at Ling Xinjian coolly. The instigator scratched his chin guiltily, dodged his eyes, and said loudly, "What are you gossiping about? I just said it casually, work quickly, we are in a hurry." But everyone could hear his guilty conscience, and no one answered him at all. Photographer Ahung twisted his 33-yard waist and walked in front of Ling Chen, leaned over and asked sourly, "Hey, how beautiful is the white moonlight that makes Ling Chen miss my family?" Ling Chen just glanced at him coldly. Everyone understood instantly, and no longer asked any more questions. In the entertainment industry, this kind of question is basically impossible to answer. Although Ling Chen is following the route of a powerful singer, his girlfriend fans are not less than those popular male stars. The photographer curled his lips, and naturally thought of this level, but found it extremely boring. At this time, Ling Chen suddenly opened his mouth. "It's called Bai Yue Guang," he said lightly. "How beautiful do you think?" Zhu Wenxia suddenly sneezed twice. Teacher Wang at the next desk turned around and joked, "Hey, Xiaozu, someone is thinking about you. Come on." Zhu Wenxia buried his head in looking for a tissue to wipe his nose, avoiding it. "I just want to live until Sister Zhong comes back from her maternity leave, don't think about me if you have nothing else to do." Zhu Wenxia was the only new teacher in the entire language group office. Hearing this, they all showed a bewildered smile of, "Look, I advised you to be careful not to take over the responsibility of the substitute head teacher, but you didn't listen. Where is it so serious? I have been a class teacher for decades, and I am still alive and well." Teacher Wang opened the thermos cup and took a sip of hot tea. Suddenly remembered something, kicked his feet, slid the chair to Zhu Wenxia's side, and asked in a low voice, "By the way, Xiao Zhu, are you still in love?" "What?" Zhu Wenxia's movements stagnated, he covered his nose with a tissue, and his voice was weak. "What's wrong? What's going on?" Mr. Wang got closer and closer, his eyes were shining, and a mole was looming on the corner of his mouth. "It shouldn't be, you don't need people to chase after you, right? Are you asking too much?" "Yup." Zhu Wenxia took out the red pen, opened the homework, and said while correcting, "I am a bit demanding." "Mr. Wang, tell me about it." "My husband is from the first hospital, and he has a lot of young doctors in his hands. There must be someone who meets your requirements." Since graduating from bachelor's degree, Zhu Wenxia has met warm-hearted old men on average every month, and he handles them with ease, and he doesn't need to think through his words. You have to be 1.8 meters tall, you can't be too fat or too thin, you have to have chest muscles even if you don't have abdominal muscles, you have to look like a school grass, the age difference is not more than 3 years old, and your education must be at least the same as mine, a TOP 985 undergraduate or master's degree. Parents should also be intellectuals, working income is not required, but they must have a house and a car. Teacher Wang, Do you see if there is a suitable one? Teacher Wang. She wanted to say that your requirements are a bit high, and the school grass alone can directly block the sieve. But thinking about it carefully, these conditions correspond to Zhu Wenchu himself one by one, which doesn't seem to be too much. No wonder being single. That's right, it's hard to find. Then, if there is a suitable one, I will definitely keep an eye out for you. Trouble, Mr. Wang. After dealing with the enthusiastic old man, the bell just rang for the end of get out of class. Zhu Wenchu remembered that he was almost late this morning and didn't have time to eat breakfast, so he put down his pen and walked to the school canteen to buy some milk and bread pads for his stomach. Just 2 steps away from the office, Zhu Wenchu heard someone calling her. Turning around, Zhu Qisan followed him out of the office with long legs and stretched out his arms to show off his muscles. I'm 185, with chest and abdominal muscles. You know what I look like? I used to be called a school girl. I'm the same age as you and go to the same school. My parents are both doctors. My salary is not too high, but I have a house and a car. How about it? When do we go to get the certificate? Zhu Wenchu. If she hadn't thought about being a teacher, she would definitely kick her up. It's the weekend. Zhu Wenchu waved him out of the way. I usually have classes, so I'm not too busy to come. Zhu Qisan hurriedly followed Zhu Wenchu downstairs. The Civil Affairs Bureau doesn't work on weekends. How about this? I'm strong enough to move the Civil Affairs Bureau here in the afternoon. Zhu Wenchu, has the goddess caught up? Mr. Zhu Qisan, you will be 26 next year, but hurry up, men will go downhill after 25. Mentioning this, Zhu Qisan began to pluck his hair, which was not thick in the first place, irritably. Isn't this asking you to find a way? A few days ago, Shuer told me that if I took her to Ling Chen's concert, she would agree to be with me. I thought about how big this is, and immediately agreed. Who knows that when I go home and check it, I can't buy it at all? Okay, tickets are sold out in a second, is this appropriate? I want to say buy scalper tickets. I don't understand, I'm afraid of being cheated, and I think those second-hand dealers sell them at 7 or 8,000, why don't you go grab the money? Hearing the word Ling Chen from Zhu Qisan's mouth, Zhu Wenchu didn't have any special thoughts. She and Zhu Qisan are college alumni, they met by chance. I don't know if it was because of the same surname, but the two hit it off very well, and later both joined Zhongcheng Experimental Primary School to work, and they have been friends for 7 or 8 years. Last year, Zhu Qisan fell in love with a music teacher in the middle school next door, and tried his best to catch up, but kept talking to Zhu Wenchu about how much that music teacher liked Ling Chen and what Ling Chen was. There is only one person in heaven and earth. Zhu Wenchu said that this is not nonsense, there are no 2 identical leaves in the world, if you can find a second Ling Chen, it will be fine. However, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Zhu Wenchu never told Zhu Qisan about his relationship with Ling Chen. Then what's the use of you looking for me? Zhu Wenchu said, you can't get tickets with your hand speed, how can my hand speed be faster than yours? Zhu Qisan, you are a teacher, why are you talking so dirty? Zhu Wenchu. Zhu Qisan, what's the speed of the hands? Zhu Wenchu. She squinted her eyes to look at the sky, and sighed deeply, will you not be able to catch up with anyone who is shameless in front of the music teacher but half in front of me? Hey, let's talk about business. Zhu Qisan said, didn't you say that your roommate is a star-chasing girl? Please help me to ask if there is any way to buy tickets. I heard there is a machine or something, or is there any other way? Let me go back and ask for you. Don't look back. While talking, the two had already reached the canteen. Zhu Qisan opened the freezer and took out a bottle of Nutrition Express and handed it to Zhu Wenchu, you can ask now, it's okay anyway. Zhu Wenchu took the drink, walked to the shelf, and lowered his head to choose bread. Why are you so anxious? My roommate hasn't gotten up yet. Okay, just don't forget, I'm going to class. After Zhu Qisan left, Zhu Wenxue walked back to the office slowly, thinking about Zhu Qisan all the time. Although he seems unreliable, he is serious about this music teacher. As a friend, if Zhu Wenxue can help, he will naturally do his best. It's just that instead of beating around the bush and asking the roommate, it's better to ask the deity directly. Probably no one knows his own concert tickets better than Ling Chen. Thinking of this, Zhu Wenxue took out his mobile phone and found Ling Chen's WeChat. Opening the chat box, Zhu Wenxue suddenly choked. She even forgot to reply Ling Chen's message. Moreover, their chat still remained in an unfriendly atmosphere. Ugh! Zhu Wenxue sighed heavily. Did she just say too much? After a moment of hesitation, type. Zhu Wenxue, sorry, I said a little too much. Zhu Wenxue, it is understandable that you are also a first-time father with little experience. After sending it, she continued to type, but I still hope that in the future you can see, it's okay, Mr. Zhu is also the first time to be a teacher, so I don't have much experience, it's understandable. Zhu Wenxue : The two were silent for a long time for no reason. See, Teacher Zhu, is there anything else? See, is it okay, can I go to work? Zhu Wenxue suddenly came back to his senses, and only then remembered the business of looking for him. Zhu Wenxue, oh. See : Zhu Wenxue, I just want to ask, besides the official platform, do you have other channels to buy concert tickets? See, just this matter? Zhu Wenxue, See, when did Teacher Zhu learn to beat around the bush? Zhu Wenxue : See, our old classmates, can we still charge you tickets? Zhu Wenxue, no, you misunderstood, I asked for a friend. See, your friend doesn't know the last name Zhu, does he? Zhu Wenxue. For a moment, Zhu Wenxue regretted why he agreed to help Zhu Qisan. In other words, why did she want to save trouble and contact Ling Chen directly? Never mind. Zhu Wenxue sighed and cut off the topic directly. Zhu Wenxue, just pretend I didn't ask. Ling Chen never came back. The autumn sun was high, and the fine halo of light fell on the desk through the window. A teacher went downstairs to pick sweet-scented osmanthus, and the whole office was filled with a light fragrance. In such an environment, even trivial tasks seem less annoying. Zhu Wenxue hummed softly, finished grading the homework, and ticked off the first item on the to-do list. The next item is to arrange Chinese homework for the National Day holiday through the Ding Talk group. The originally relaxed mood was suddenly covered with mist when I released the content of the homework to the parents. Holiday homework has always been arranged by the Teaching and Research Group. The Chinese homework for this National Day is nothing special, just ask the children to write a small travel note. It's just that Zhu Wenxue feels pitiful when he thinks that parents or grandparents will appear in other children's homework, and Ling Xiyuan is likely to only have the supervision of a nanny. If she remembered correctly, Ling Chen herself was also in a single-parent family. But in the years of high school, Zhu Wenxue's understanding of Ling Chen only goes so far. More information comes from various revelations from unknown sources after he became famous. It is said that his mother died very early, and his father was almost a gangster, addicted to alcohol, gambling, and violence. Not only has he never fulfilled his responsibilities as a father, but he also frequently asked Ling Chen for huge alimony payments in the past 2 years. This kind of family background was not uncommon in the entertainment industry in the early years. So at one time, some people thought that this was a beautiful, strong, and miserable persona deliberately set up by the company behind Ling Chen. There were many rumors, but Ling Chen never responded. But Zhu Wenxue knew that these should all be true. Those bleak high school days, his tattered clothes, and the new wounds on his face should all be evidence of these rumors. In this case, why didn't Ling Chen learn from his lesson and become a responsible father? Ugh! Zhu Wenxue sighed, and with the conscience and responsibility of the people's teacher, he picked up his mobile phone and sent Ling Chen a message. Zhu Wenshu, are you free during the National Day? See, none. Zhu Wenshu, I understand that you are popular right now and you are very busy at work, but do you really have no free time? Zhu Wenshu, even if it's just for one night? C:. Zhu Wenshu:. C, sorry. C, I sell my art but not my body. Zhu Wenshu. Her fist was really squeezed and squeezed. The previous Ling Chen was obviously not like this. Although they didn't have much contact, he was definitely not this kind of person. The entertainment industry is indeed a big divat. Zhu Wenshu didn't want to continue the conversation with him, so he just copied the homework and threw it over. Dear parents, we are about to usher in a beautiful National Day. On this golden wind and pleasant autumn day, we encourage everyone to take their children out of the house and get close to nature. At that time, the Chinese homework will be a travel note with a theme of your own, with zoos and botanical gardens as the theme. Good. All the teachers and staff of Zhongcheng Experimental Primary School wish you a happy National Day. Before clicking the send button, Zhu Wenshu paused and deleted the last sentence. You better not be too happy. Because teachers have paid winter and summer vacations, Zhu Wenshu does not plan to be crowded during the 7 days of National Day. Originally planned to go home to accompany his parents, but the old couple decided to go on a self-driving tour with their colleagues, so Zhu Wenshu could only stay in Zhongcheng alone for the holidays. It's not bad to watch other people squeeze their heads every day on the internet. Zhu Wenshu bought a lot of snacks and fruits and piled them up at home, and watched all the variety shows and dramas that she usually didn't have time to watch. She wore pajamas from morning to night, and only takeaway and express delivery allowed her to open the door. Thinking about it carefully, it seems to have completely replicated the life of her roommate. Speaking of shared roommate Ying Fei, Zhu Wenshu didn't understand her living habits at first. As a full-time illustrator, Ying Fei's work and life were all in her second bedroom, and she only went out once every 2 or 3 days on average, and she was always lying on the bed as if she was paralyzed. It was Zhu Wenshu's turn. She was even worse than Ying Fei, and she didn't see anyone for 6 days. On the last day of the holiday, Ying Fei couldn't stand it anymore, so she took her to a nearby park to bask in the sun. I don't know if it's because the parents have taken the children on a trip, but the park today is exceptionally clean, and there are not many old people playing chess and playing with birds. Only the most famous Ferris wheel with a panoramic view of the entire Zhongcheng was visited. 20 degrees of weather, only a few days in a year. Zhu Wenshu and Ying Fei occupied a bench alone, wasting more than 2 hours doing nothing. The shadow of the sun moved silently, and the fallen leaves fluttering in the beam of light brushed past Zhu Wenshu's nose. She opened her eyes, but she couldn't find the target in midair, and it took a while for her thoughts to return. Her eyes moved to the left, and she looked at Ying Fei. It's 6 o'clock, do you want to go back? Ying Fei covered her face with the newspaper, and let out a soft hum. Then there was another 5 minutes of stillness before uncovering the newspaper. Let's go. The sun was about to set, and the two of them left the park slowly with their pockets in their pockets, went to the pedestrian street to have dinner, and then turned around and went home. When opening the door and lowering his head to change his shoes, Zhu Wenshu suddenly said, "Yet. What's wrong?" Ying Fei asked, "Slippers burn your feet?" "No." Zhu Wenshu raised his cuffs, frowned, and said, "My bracelet is missing." "Hey? Lost it? Did you not wear it when you went out?" "Impossible, I wear it every day even if I don't go out." Although his mouth was very firm, Zhu Wenshu went into the room and looked at the jewelry box. Seeing that the bracelet was not inside, she searched the bedside and bathroom again. "I couldn't find it in my own room," so Zhu Wenshujin hurriedly searched for it in the kitchen and living room with his slippers on, even turning over the seams of the sofa. Seeing her in such a hurry, Ying Fei also helped her look around. "What does it look like?" "Beaded bracelet, pink crystal." The two searched around the house but couldn't find it, so they basically concluded that it was lost in a park or a pedestrian street. Ying Fei said, "It looks like I have to go back to the park, but I don't know if anyone has picked it up. I'll look for it myself." Zhu Wenxia sighed, "Don't you still have to submit the manuscript? Go ahead and do it. If you can't find it, forget it. It's okay, anyway, I won't start writing until the evening." Ying Fei put on her coat and waved to her, "Let's go." Zhu Wenxu actually didn't want to trouble Ying Fei to accompany her on this trip, but she really liked this bracelet, and was worried that she would be picked up if she went late. So the two split up after leaving the house. Ying Fei went to the pedestrian street to have a look, while Zhu Wenxu returned to the park. Autumn days are short. Zhu Wenxu walks very slowly, looking down along the way. By the time we reached the gate of the park, night had already swept across the sky. From a distance, the Ferris wheel in the center of the park has been lit up, and the neon lights are shining in the half-dark night sky. The park gate, which was originally open, was inexplicably pulled up the railing barrier, and there were a few people with work signs standing beside it. Zhu Wenxu was a little confused, and tentatively approached a few steps, but before she could speak, a man stepped forward to stop her from approaching. "Sorry, the park has been cleared right now, so you can't enter." Zhu Wenxu nodded, said yes, turned around and took 2 steps, took out her phone and asked Ying Fei if she found it. "Ying Fei, no, there are so many people in the pedestrian street, I have searched for it several times, if it is really left here, it must be picked up by someone." Zhu Wenxu pinched the phone and turned around hesitantly. After taking 2 steps, he looked back at the gate of the park unwillingly. "This bracelet is not actually jewelry, it is just a decorative grade crystal stone. But it was a gift she gave herself with the first month's salary when she joined the job last year to commemorate the realization of her teacher's dream. For the current Zhu Wenxu, it is a very precious thing. Now that she suddenly lost it, Zhu Wenxu just gave up unwillingly. Moreover, the sudden clearance of the park is a good thing, at least there are fewer floating tourists, which reduces the possibility of the bracelet being picked up." After swaying for a moment, Zhu Wenxu turned and walked towards the isolation zone. "When will your event end?" "I'm going in to find something very important." "This." The man glanced at his watch, turned around and whispered something to his colleagues, and then looked at Zhu Wenxu with some embarrassment. "It's hard to say, we've just started work. If it's fast, we'll finish the filming in 2 or 3 hours, if it's slow, it might take a while." "It's midnight. 2 or 3 hours." Thinking of going to work tomorrow morning, Zhu Wenxu started to have trouble again. "Girl, why don't you just come back tomorrow?" Seeing her sad face, the man said, "And this is a dark person, even if you go in now, you won't be able to find it. Why don't you come and look for it during the day? We can only do this." Zhu Wenxu dragged his heavy steps and nodded dejectedly. Then tonight in the middle of speaking, Zhu Wenxu found that the eyes of the group of staff suddenly all focused on the same place, and then went to pull the isolation belt. Turning around following their line of sight, Zhu Wenxu saw a black commercial vehicle approaching slowly, so he immediately took a step back consciously to make way for them. However, the car stopped slowly beside her. Zhu Wenxu was stunned for a moment, then immediately took another step back. The car is still lingering. A moment later, the windows were lowered. The night was hazy, and only a small light was turned on in the car. But Zhu Wenxu could still see Ling Chen's outline in the darkness. He nestled in the seat, tilted his head and looked over. The faint light of the dark pupils was particularly attractive. "The face in front of me is really difficult to travel through time, and it corresponds to the boy in my memory." Suddenly the 4 eyes meet. Zhu Wenxu is still inexplicably dazed. There is a cool breeze, and the surroundings are so quiet that there are only insects chirping. "Mr. Zhu, I will charge you if you read on." Zhu Wenxu. Suddenly regaining consciousness, Zhu Wenxu looked away expressionlessly. In fact, Zhu Wenchu was not surprised that Ling Chen would appear here. The night view of this park is very famous, and many celebrities usually come to take pictures. When she saw the isolation zone, she knew that another star team must be filming here. It's just that I didn't expect such a coincidence that I could run into an acquaintance when I was desperate. So, Zhu Wenchu adjusted his mood for a while, tried to put on a particularly surprised look, turned his head and said, "Ling Chen. Why are you here?" Ling Chen glanced at her lightly, hummed knowingly, and raised his chin towards her. "Get in the car." "Okay." Apart from the driver, Ling Chen was the only one in the car. After Zhu Wenchu sat down, he raised his head and was about to talk to him the moment their eyes met. Ling Chen lazily withdrew his gaze and continued to sleep in the seat. He didn't say a word the whole time, as if treating her like air. "Why don't you ask her what she's here for?" The atmosphere became inexplicably awkward. Zhu Wenchu stared at Ling Chen hesitantly, wondering whether it would disturb him to speak up. At this moment, Ling Chen seemed to sense Zhu Wenchu's gaze, and suddenly opened his eyes to look at her. "By the way, what are you doing here?" "Zhu Wenchu, I'm here to find something." "Oh." Ling Chen didn't show any surprise, turned his head to look at the car window, and asked in a flat tone, "What is it?" "A bracelet. It should have been left here in the afternoon. I just came back to look for it. I didn't expect it to come in." Zhu Wenchu said, "Thank you for bringing me in." Ling Chen suddenly turned to look at her, but didn't speak immediately. After a while, "You still looking for it so late?" Although Zhu Wenchu stared directly at the front row, he could feel that when she mentioned a bracelet, Ling Chen's gaze was no longer sleepy, but directly on the side of her face. Feeling a little uncomfortable, she lowered her head and smoothed her hair. "Well, I can't find it and I can't sleep." "Ling Chen, is it very special?" "Okay." Zhu Wenchu nodded, "It's very expensive." The car slowly drove towards the Ferris wheel. Zhu Wenchu observed the road outside the car, thinking about where to get off so that she could start looking. The man beside him said abruptly, "From your boyfriend." Zhu Wenchu's attention was all on the road, and he answered casually, "What boyfriend? I bought it myself." The narrow cabin space magnifies every small movement. After a moment of silence, Zhu Wenchu clearly heard him snort slightly. "Are you still single?" "What tone is this?" Zhu Wenchu inexplicably heard the irony of "You are such a piece of trash, you are still single after all these years." "Well, sort of." "Ling Chen, what do you mean?" Zhu Wenchu turned to look at him slowly. "It's about the same as you. I just got divorced last year with 2 kids." Because of the phrase "similar to you," the driver, who has always regarded himself as a transparent person, tried hard to hide his surprise, but it still leaked from the bottom of his feet. With a sudden step on the brake, Zhu Wenchu almost bumped into the seat in front of him. Raising his head and meeting the driver's shocked eyes in the rear-view mirror, Zhu Wenchu said with a sneer, "Brother, I'm just kidding." The driver was also a little embarrassed. He looked at Ling Chen hesitantly, then turned around stiffly and continued driving. After sitting up straight, Zhu Wenchu also turned to look at Ling Chen. He also happened to be looking at her with his arms folded, with a playful smile on the corner of his mouth, as if he wasn't the one who almost broke the secret. "Mr. Zhu, you can eat indiscriminately, but you can't talk indiscriminately." Zhu Wenchu didn't expect Ling Chen to cover up this matter so tightly that even his own driver didn't know about it. "Think carefully but reasonable. This kind of thing, the more dangerous it is for one more person to know." "Sorry, got it." A few minutes later, the car slowly stopped in the open space under the Ferris wheel. There were several nanny cars parked not far away, with various shooting equipment piled up next to them, and people with work badges shuttled among them. The car door opened, Zhu Wenchu stood up, turned to Ling Chen and said, "Then I'll get out of the car first." Ling Chen gave a hum and didn't look at her more. Because she was wearing a long skirt, it was not very convenient for Zhu Wenchu to move around. She lowered her head and held the hem of the skirt, stretching her legs slowly. As soon as he stood firm, he met a man who was walking towards him. Both of them were taken aback. The man looked to be about 30 years old, tall and straight, with a careful and steady look in his eyes, and he looked quite oppressive. And for some reason, Zhu Wenchu always felt that this man looked very familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere. Thinking of this, Zhu Wenchu took another look at him. The man also looked at her with scrutiny. "Hi, excuse me." When he came back to his senses, Zhu Wenchu realized that he had been watching him for a long time, so he politely said hello to him. He didn't say anything, just nodded, and then stepped aside. After Zhu Wenchu left, Ling Xinjian got into the car directly. His touched the cushion, and he felt a little warm. He immediately pointed to Zhu Wenchu's back, and asked Ling Chen, "Who is it?" The car door was not closed. Ling Chen turned his head, and a white skirt faded away in his field of vision. After a moment of silence, Ling Chen withdrew his gaze and said flatly, "Student from high school." His tone was relaxed, but Ling Xinjian suddenly sat up straight, staring at Ling Chen with wide eyes. Ling Chen glanced at him, and said word by word, "Ordinary high school students." Only then did Ling Xinjian relax, and sat back down again. It's no wonder that he is sensitive. Since becoming Ling Chen's manager, several strands of Ling Xinjian's hair have turned grey. Needless to say, all kinds of business affairs are so busy that in this era where traffic is king, how many media are trying their best to dig out some pornographic news from Ling Chen to complete the KPI. Fortunately, Ling Chen didn't let him worry about this aspect. As time passed, he was relieved that any paparazzi would follow and take sneak shots. If he can catch Ling Chen and that female star King Wo, Ling Xing said that he will be the first to go to the melon-eating scene. But ever since he learned that Ling Chen had contacted that Bai Yueguang in the studio that day, Ling Xinjian couldn't sit still. Both worried and curious. In fact, he didn't know the story between Ling Chen and that Bai Yueguang very well. When he was studying, he and Ling Chen didn't meet much. After all, they were several years apart. Until that year, Zhang Yuxuan's company tapped Ling Chen to sign the contract, preparing to produce the album of the same name of Little Silkworm Classmate. Having a drink after dinner, Zhang Yuxuan asked Ling Chen if this song was written specifically for a certain girl. Ling Chen didn't deny it, but only answered 4 words, "High school classmate." Ling Xinjian, who was on the sidelines and had not stepped into the entertainment circle with half a foot, immediately straightened his back and pricked up his ears, ready to listen to the love story of this future superstar. But Zhang Yuxuan didn't ask any more questions, but just smiled, expressing that he understood. And Ling Chen was also like a saw-mouthed gourd. After that, for more than 5 years, he didn't reveal a word about this matter. Therefore, Ling Xinjian was particularly troubled these days. The worry was that if something happened to Ling Chen and that Bai Yueguang and it was exposed, Ling Xinjian, who had never dealt with such scandals before, was very nervous, planning ahead and how to control the situation. What is curious is, who is this Bai Yueguang who can make Ling Chen never forget for so many years? So when he first saw a strange woman get off Ling Chen's car, and then saw her face to face, a thought popped into Ling Xinjian's mind for no reason. This is Ling Chen's classmate Xiaokan. This idea is not just Ling Xinjian's intuition. He has been in the entertainment industry for these years, and has seen all kinds of female stars, bright and flamboyant, cute and delicate, and some are as cold as a fairy. But it was the first time he had seen someone as bookish as Zhu Wenchu. With just one glance, one could tell that this girl was clean and incompatible with the luxurious and rich Vanity Fair atmosphere in the entertainment industry. If that face without makeup is really in the entertainment industry, people will spontaneously give it the title of white moonlight without the need for the company to create a persona. Ling Chen said that she was just an ordinary high school classmate. Ling Xinjian heaved a sigh of relief, but at the same time became more and more curious. Such a female classmate is just ordinary, so how divine is his white moonlight? Then why is she in your car? Ling Xing asked. By chance, come in and find something. Ling Chen didn't seem to want to talk much about this ordinary high school classmate. He lowered the car window, blowing the night breeze, and changed the subject. Didn't I ask you to take your son out to play? Why are you here again? Sleeping. I took him to the countryside for a long time in the afternoon and ran wildly for most of the day. I was exhausted. Ling Xinjian pointed to the long-haired man outside the car window, but this photographer Xie is a master of ideas. Don't worry, I have to come and have a look. Zhu Wenxia searched for more than an hour with the flashlight on his mobile phone, but there was no trace of the bracelet, and there was also bad news from Ying Fei. It was almost 9 o'clock, and the park was so quiet that only the chirping of insects could be heard. Zhu Wenxia sat on the bench for a while, and gradually accepted that this bracelet might end up being irretrievable. Forget it, it must have been picked up by someone. Zhu Wenxia sighed deeply, got up to leave, and took out her mobile phone to send a message to her mother. Zhu Wenxu, I lost the pink crystal bracelet I bought last year. Zhu Wenxu, I wonder if someone who loves me will buy me another one. Mummy, sure. Mommy, ask your boyfriend to buy it for you. Zhu Wenxu, where do I have a boyfriend? Mummy, then where is there someone who loves you? Zhu Wenxia : After being rejected by his mother, Zhu Wenxia raised his head and looked in the direction of the Ferris wheel. That was the only place she hadn't looked for, because Ling Chen was working there, and she hadn't planned to go there. And there is not much hope, after all, she and Ying Fei walked around in the past in the afternoon, so it could not be such a coincidence. But adhering to the idea that everything has come, Zhu Wenxia poked his neck and walked over there. The busy shooting scene was much larger than Zhu Wenxia imagined. The entire playground was almost completely occupied, and all kinds of equipment that had never been seen before filled up all the open spaces. And there are at least 20 or 30 staff members stationed on site. Zhu Wenxia didn't understand why so many people were needed for Ling Chen to take a few photos. She stood in the distance and watched for a while, seeing the lights changing back and forth, and Ling Chen was surrounded by the crowd, and she could barely see a figure. Before he knew it, Zhu Wenxia had slowly moved to the side of the shooting scene. Standing behind a group of staff, Zhu Wenxia acted very cautiously. He just wanted to glance at the ground, but unconsciously, he was attracted by the man standing under the light board. The night is dense, starry, and neon lights are flickering and flowing. In this colorful light and shadow, the man who is full of stars is wearing a simple black suit. He took all the attention from the crowd and the stars in the sky, and leaned lazily against the guardrail with his long legs draped casually. The flashes of the camera were fired one after another, and Ling Chen, who was so commonplace, never blinked his eyes. It's as if he was born for the camera. But Zhu Wenxia knows that he had a bleak past, and he is completely different from Ling Chen, who is showing his sharpness now. It was also at this moment that Zhu Wenxia suddenly felt a split in time and space. Looking at these busy staff, she clearly felt that Ling Chen and her ordinary people seemed to live in different worlds. Amazing! People who used to be in a small classroom and could be seen as soon as they turned around, now seemed to be separated by a Milky Way. Zhu Wenxia was thinking deeply about his life, and he didn't know when he was standing beside him. As the photographer's shooting angle changed, someone walked around carrying a lighting board, and Zhu Wenxia stepped back a few steps with the crowd. Turning her head, she found that the man she met when she got off the car was standing side by side with her. This person looks too familiar. Zhu Wenxia felt that he must have seen him somewhere, but he couldn't remember. Therefore, she involuntarily looked at Ling Xinjian a few more times. Perhaps feeling her gaze, Ling Xinjian turned his head. Did you find your things? Hey! Zhu Wenxia didn't expect this person to know what she was here for, so he was taken aback for a moment before saying, not yet. Ling Xinjian nodded, I'm Ling Chen's manager. Zhu Wenxia couldn't figure out whether he was simply introducing himself or hinting at her. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Will my standing here affect your work?" "It's okay." Ling Xinjian crossed his arms, and tapped his fingertips on his arms twice. "Are you Ling Chen's high school classmate?" Zhu Wenxia nodded, "Yes, yes." "Then do you know when he was in high school?" Ling Xinjian paused for a moment, as if considering his words. "Which girl do you like?" "Ah." This question came unexpectedly, but Zhu Wenxia couldn't help thinking about it in his mind. "The girl Ling Chen likes? Have it? Has he gotten close to any female classmates? Wait, isn't the girl Ling Chen likes in high school the mother of Ling Xiyuan? So even his agent didn't know about these past events?" Zhu Wenxia looked at Ling Xinjian hesitantly, and said hesitantly, "Sorry, I don't know, I'm not familiar with him at all." Ling Xinjian was a little surprised when he heard this, and raised his eyebrows. After taking a few glances at Zhu Wenxia, he laughed and said, "It's the first time I meet Ling Chen's high school classmates, so I'll chat casually, don't be nervous." "Okay." Zhu Wenxia nodded and said in a low voice, "It's getting late, so I won't disturb your work for now." Ling Xing said, "Yes." Before leaving, Zhu Wenxia wondered whether to say hello to Ling Chen before leaving. After all, he was the one who brought her in. Turning his head to look at the focal point of everyone's eyes, the filming just happened to be intermission, and Ling Chen stood still, looking at his phone with his eyes downcast, not paying attention to the crowd at all. Several men and women gathered around him to arrange their clothes and hairstyles, and they didn't seem to be free. Zhu Wenxia thought that it would be embarrassing for him to go up and talk to him rashly at this moment, so forget it. So Zhu Wenxia turned his head and walked towards the gate of the park. On the small road back, Zhu Wenxia still stared at the ground with his head down, trying to struggle again. At this time, the phone suddenly vibrated. "See, gone?" Zhu Wenxia typed casually. "Zhu Wenxia, yes." "See, found it." "Zhu Wenxia, I can't find it, forget it, I have to go to school after 7 o'clock tomorrow." "See, it seems that it is not very important. Losing the bracelet is already very hard, and Ling Chen is still making sarcastic remarks here." Zhu Wenxia snorted coldly, and typed with a wooden face. "Zhu Wenxia, it's not important, I will come back at night to look for it." "See, then why don't you look for the bracelet? See, instead, watch me take pictures without moving?" Zhu Wenxia. "Like a statue?" How to say it out of his mouth, as if you coveted his beauty so much. "Zhu Wenxia, I didn't find it because you were the only one. See, it's half time now, come back to look for it." Zhu Wenxia thought about the posture of the shooting scene. No matter how expensive the bracelet was, it was not so expensive that she had to search for it among a group of strangers at work. It's kind of embarrassing. "Zhu Wenxia, why don't you just forget it? I just looked at it, and you probably don't have any." Walked a few more steps along the path. "See, did you really lose your bracelet here?" Holding the phone in his hand, Zhu Wenxia carefully read Ling Chen's words for a while. No matter how you look at it, he seems to be questioning the purpose of her being here today. Could it be that she deliberately found an excuse to see him? He has been a star for a long time, everyone thinks he is a fan. Zhu Wenxia wanted to say too much and make mistakes, and he was too lazy to talk nonsense, so he had to be perfunctory. "Zhu Wenxia, oh, a few seconds ago, I saw it as soon as I lowered my head." "Zhu Wenxia, I finally found it." "Zhu Wenxia, thank you." "See, See, you are awesome." Maybe it's because of a guilty conscience, Zhu Wenxia always feels that Ling Chen's "you are awesome" is a bit weird. Ever since he became the substitute head teacher, Zhu Wenxia's sleep quality has plummeted, even worse tonight. In the early morning of the next day, Zhu Wenxia stared at his haggard face, went to school early as usual, went to the class to take a look at the situation of the students, and then returned to the office to deal with a bunch of trivial matters. Just turning on the computer, looking at his empty wrist, Zhu Wenxia was stunned for a while. Or buy another one. After all, I didn't meet anyone I liked more when I was shopping this year. Thinking that the salary will be paid next week, Zhu Wenchu had nothing to hesitate, and immediately took out his mobile phone and started looking at the flagship store. After more than 10 minutes, Zhu Wenchu rummaged through the online store and asked the customer service. After confirming that the bracelet had been taken off the shelves, he finally put down his phone in frustration. At the same time, a small head suddenly stuck out to her table. Ah! Zhu Wenchu was startled by Ling Xiyuan. Why are you here? Ling Xiyuan carefully put the homework on the table. I'll hand in the homework. Okay. Zhu Wenchu thought that he was almost late again, so he didn't ask any more questions, but just patted his head. It's class time, go back to the classroom. Good teacher. As soon as Ling Xiyuan left, Zhu Wenchu propped up his cheeks, stared listlessly at the sunlight outside the window, turned his pen with his fingers, and began to comfort himself. Many people say that the pink crystal attracts peach blossoms, and since it is lost, it must have helped her prevent rotten peach blossoms. Well, that's pretty good too. Thinking of this, Zhu Wenchu lowered his hand and picked up the homework that Xiyuan had put aside. As soon as she touched it, she felt that the touch was not right. There is a large bulge in the middle of the small composition, which looks like something is caught. Yuan Yuan. Zhu Wenchu turned around and called Ling Xiyuan, is there something in your homework? It just so happened that the class bell rang, and Ling Xiyuan had already run to the door of the office, and hurriedly said, it's my uncle. Dad asked me to bring it to the teacher. Ling Chen? Zhu Wenchu didn't know why, so he stared at the homework book twice before opening it. The bright autumn sun shines through the leaves and dapples the desk. The pink crystal bracelet that was lost for one night was caught in Ling Xiyuan's composition, and it was sparkling with tiny rays of light. It should be a very happy thing to find something you love after losing it. But Zhu Wenchu's mood is very complicated. She looked at her mobile phone for a while, and at the bracelet for a while, thinking why she was in such a hurry to deal with him last night, and she didn't miss the traffic to deal with him a few more words. Now she feels like a monkey, putting on a big show in front of Ling Chen. It's fine if you play dead. But people really helped me, so I can't justify it if I don't say thank you. Ugh. Being annoyed, Zhu Qisan wandered into the office at some point, and greeted those middle-aged female teachers one by one, making everyone laugh, then turned around to Zhu Wenchu's side, and leaned on her desk casually, asked, how about the thing I asked a few days ago? Zhu Wenchu looked up, what's the matter? I knew you forgot. Zhu Qisan bent down and winked, did you ask your Star Chaser roommate about Ling Chen's concert tickets? Why is it Ling Chen again? Zhu Wenchu curled his lips, I'm just asking, but my roommate has a messy schedule, maybe he hasn't gotten up yet. It just so happened that as soon as Zhu Wenchu picked up the phone, he found that Ying Fei had sent her a message, informing her that the property fee for this month was coming, and sent her a list. Oh, wake up! Zhu Wenchu said, no, it should be because I haven't slept yet. Zhu Wenchu, by the way, let me ask you something. Zhu Wenchu, do you know that there are other ways to get Ling Chen's concert tickets? Can't find it through official channels. Ying Fei, his Christmas concert? Zhu Wenchu turned his head and asked Zhu Qisan, is there a Christmas concert? Ah! Zhu Qisan scratched his head, Christmas? Oh, it doesn't matter what kind of concert it is, as long as it's Ling Chen's. Zhu Wenchu, it doesn't matter what concert he is, as long as it's Ling Chen's. Ying Fei colon? Ying Fei, are you Ling Chen's fan? Zhu Wenchu, no, I asked for a friend. Ying Fei, oh. Ying Fei, I was taken aback. Zhu Wenchu, what? Ying Fei, nothing. After a while, Ying Fei sent a voice message. His fans are as fast as dogs. If you can't buy it, you can't buy it. It's not worth seeing. Zhu Qisan, who was behind Zhu Wenchu's public announcement, also heard it, and he asked, "Ask her if she knows any reliable scalpers." After Zhu Wenchu conveyed the truth, Ying Fei said, "Yes, there are, but they didn't sell Ling Chen's tickets." Zhu Wenchu, why? Zhu Wenchu, no one buys it except fans? Ying Fei. Ying Fei, I hope so. Ying Fei, he boycotted the scalpers to death. I didn't see anyone who got his ticket. After getting the answer, Zhu Wenchu directly showed Zhu Qisan the dialogue between her and Ying Fei. Ouch! He murmured, this is tricky. Tickets for his concert are so popular, where can I get them? Seeing Zhu Qisan's frown, Zhu Wenchu really wanted to tell your music teacher not to be obsessed with Ling Chen. There's no need to be Ling Siyuan's internet stepmother. But think about it or hold back. Why don't I give her Ling Chen's vinyl album? Zhu Qisan said suddenly. Shui'er mentioned it before. Zhu Wenchu said absently, whatever you want. Zhu Qisan dawdled here for a while, and didn't leave until the bell rang for the end of get out of class. The sound of children playing happily can be heard outside the window, which is Zhu Wenchu's favorite sound. But at the moment, this little atmosphere did not rescue Zhu Wenchu from the entangled emotions, but made her even more uneasy. That's right, Ling Chen is so popular, and even helped you find a bracelet, but you are too embarrassed to say thank you. How can you be a teacher and lead by example? Thinking of this, Zhu Wenchu sent Ling Chen a message in a way-inspiring manner. Zhu Wenchu, received the bracelet, thank you very much. He never replied. Zhu Wenchu went to a class and took the children to do exercises between classes. On the way back to the office, I finally received a response from Ling Chen. See, See, just receive it. The stone in my heart finally fell to the ground. Look, she was the one who thought too much before. What a big deal, everyone is an adult. Can he make Chen intentionally pierce that embarrassment? Zhu Wenchu put down her phone and put on her beloved bracelet again with peace of mind. The next second, the phone vibrated again. See, but Teacher Zhu, please take a closer look. Zhu Wenchu : See, this one and the one you found yesterday. See, which one is your bracelet? Zhu Wenchu. It's not that I wish Wenchu a good teacher, at this moment she really wants to teach Ling Chen the art of speaking and how to end the chat correctly. But obviously she didn't change Ling Chen's qualifications, so she decided to change herself, ignore what he said, and change the focus of the topic. Zhu Wenchu, thank you so much, otherwise I wouldn't know what to do. Zhu Wenchu, you don't even know how important this bracelet is to me. See, is it over with a thank you? Zhu Wenchu sent a red envelope almost subconsciously. But the other party didn't click on it at all. See, Teacher Zhu, you can wait for me to die before doing this kind of thing. The implication is that there is no shortage of money at present. Zhu Wenchu, that's right. Zhu Wenchu, then shall I treat you to a meal? As soon as I posted this sentence, Zhu Wenchu began to regret it. If people are not short of money, will they still be short of food? She clicked withdraw immediately. Unexpectedly, she hadn't decided to say something again, but Ling Chen's new news came again. See, I wish the teacher doesn't have to regret it so quickly. See, my meal will not be very expensive. Why do you still use the aggressive method? Zhu Wenchu felt that this meal must be invited. But it is indeed more tricky to invite Ling Chen to eat than to give out red envelopes. If the grade is poor, I'm afraid he won't like it, and she can't afford the expensive one, and she has to consider privacy to ensure that no one will find out. She opened the app on her mobile phone, and after a long time she chose a private restaurant located halfway up the mountain, and sent it to Ling Chen. Zhu Wenchu, is this one okay? There is no dine-in, all private rooms, which should be more private. Waited a while longer. See, it's okay. It looks pretty forced. Zhu Wenchu, then when are you free? Zhu Wenchu flipped through the curriculum while typing. Zhu Wenchu, this weekend? See, there is something. Zhu Wenchu, then next weekend? See, I have something to do. Zhu Wenchu, then next weekend? See, very busy. Zhu Wenchu. Why don't we talk about it 10 years later? She pursed her lips and asked patiently. Zhu Wenchu, then when are you free? See, tonight. The Monday after the holiday is always very busy. Zhu Wenchu originally planned to stay after school to correct the holiday homework. With Ling Chen doing this, she could only take her homework home and work overtime. Thinking that it would be inconvenient to carry a bag of homework to the restaurant, Zhu Wenchu went home first after school. After putting down his things, Zhu Wenchu went to the bathroom to wash his hands. As soon as I looked up and saw my own face in the mirror, I suddenly had a thought. After all, he was having dinner with Ling Chen, so he went to the appointment with his plain face. Wouldn't he look a lot like a big star and his little follower? That's not okay. Zhu Wenchu glanced at his watch and found that there was plenty of time, so he sat down in front of the dressing table. It's makeup, but Zhu Wenchu's equipment is only a bottle of foundation, an eyebrow pencil, and 4 or 5 lipsticks. And her skin was already fair and tender, with almost no blemishes. After applying foundation a few times, she found that it was no different from not applying foundation, so she simply didn't bother, and let the liquid foundation turn ashes on the table. Opening it again today, she found that the liquid had already dried up in the bottle. Therefore, Zhu Wenchu wanted to put on a delicate makeup to go to the appointment, but in the end he only put on a little lipstick, not even an eyebrow pencil. After getting up, she looked down and saw the white shirt and black trousers she was wearing today. It's really a little more serious, like overalls. But it's not necessary to spend a lot of time matching clothes, so she opened the closet and found a light blue denim skirt to change into. After tidying up everything, Zhu Wenchu stood in front of the full-length mirror and looked at himself. He felt that he was not bad, lively and dignified, and there was no trace of specially dressed at all. Hey, it's so beautiful. Zhu Wenchu still wanted to admire himself in front of the full-length mirror for a while, when the phone rang suddenly. She picked it up in a hurry, and Zhu Qisan's urging voice came from her ear. Are you okay? If you don't come again, I will be posted. The agreed restaurant was halfway up the mountain, and the transportation was inconvenient. Zhu Wenchu originally planned to take a taxi there by himself. At lunch, he ran into Zhu Qisan again in the cafeteria. He wanted Zhu Wenchu to accompany him to choose gifts, so he took the initiative to take the driver's burden. Unexpectedly, the driver did not have the self-consciousness of the driver, so he started to rush after waiting for a long time. Zhu Wenchu hurried downstairs and glared at him when he got into the car. Do you dare to urge your music teacher like that? Can that be the same? Zhu Qisan said. He is without saying a word. When Zhu Qisan reversed the car, he turned his head and saw Zhu Wenchu. His expression suddenly became a little teasing. Oh, didn't you have dinner with a high school classmate? It seems that this classmate is unusual. As for it, I didn't even paint my eyebrows. Zhu Wenchu opened the sun visor and observed his makeup in the small mirror above. I don't look any different from usual. Zhu Qisan smiled wickedly. The main reason is that you don't usually wear much makeup, but today you came here suddenly, wearing a white shirt and a small skirt, and tied a high ponytail. It's so special. Zhu Wenchu, what? Just. Zhu Qisan stroked his chin. I suddenly remembered my first love in high school. Zhu Wenchu nodded. Then your high school first love is pretty. Zhu Qisan's destination is very clear. First go to the gold shop to buy gifts. With Zhu Wenchu here, he didn't waste much time, just pay the money. Then it was to send Zhu Wenchu to a restaurant for an appointment. When passing the Zhongcheng concert hall, he saw a large audio-visual store open next to him, thought for a while, and stepped on the accelerator. Hello. Seeing this, Zhu Wenchu said quickly, I have an appointment with my friend at 7 o'clock. Don't worry, there's time. Zhu Qisan didn't intend to let go of the gas pedal at all. I'm passing by anyway, so why don't you just buy it by the way? Without a steering wheel in his hand, Zhu Wenshi couldn't help but refuse. I don't know which musician is going to hold a concert here tonight. There are quite a lot of people in the video store. Zhu Qisan went straight to the pop music area, took a vinyl record of classmate Xiaokan, and then went to line up at the cashier. Zhu Wenshi was waiting at the door, but when he saw a lot of people queuing up, he wanted to go in and urge Zhu Qisan. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Ling Chen's classmate Xiaokan placed in the center of the display stand in front of him. This album has been released for so many years and can still be promoted by audiovisual store owners, which shows that the sales volume is indeed very good. Below the booth, there is a promotional slogan prepared by the audiovisual store itself. Every boy hides a classmate Xiaokan in his heart. Zhu Wenshi chuckled, this is quite artistic. The setting sun moved obliquely outside the glass window, covering Zhu Wenshi. She picked up the album, and the beam of light at dusk cast a hazy old-time texture on both the CD and herself. On the cover, the sunny tree-lined path is full of life, a group of students are walking towards the front, and the lens is out of focus. In the middle is a girl in a white shirt and blue skirt, holding a book, running along the crowd, her ponytail fluttering in the wind. In the whole picture, only her back is clear and vivid. I wish Wenshi not chasing stars and shopping very rationally. But at this moment, she has a desire to consume impulsively. It happened that Zhu Qisan had already lined up near the booth, so Zhu Wenshi slipped the CD to him. Buy one for me too, and transfer the money to you later. You actually bought it too? Zhu Qisan just said casually, and didn't mean to ask more, but do you want to buy his vinyl? Schwetter said the sound quality will be better. Vinyl. Zhu Wen picked up the book and flipped through it. The binding seemed to be much more upscale than ordinary CDs. How much is this? Zhu Qisan, 705. Never mind. Zhu Wenshi immediately put down the vinyl record and took back the ordinary CD, there is no need to spend so much money for him.